Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 8th, 2013 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. May we have the roll call, please?
Present, Selectman Whiteside, Selectman Tropiano, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, Town Administrator Derek Sullivan, and Town Council Richard Bowen.
Okay, next item, please.
Announcements. Mrs. Whiteside.
I have a few. Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to remind people that the leaves have started to fall down, the pine needles are falling down, and therefore the roads are going to be more slippery when they are wet. We really don't need to call out the EMTs because you guys are driving too fast. Second of all, Mr. Titlebaum and I on Friday made a visit to the Jefferson Shores pumping station at the invitation of the Jefferson Shores Association. The citizens there had taken it upon themselves to pretty the station up, and it was a really, really nice job. So I want to commend them again. There was an article in the paper about that. I want to give a shout out to Charlemagne Erasmi. That's how you pronounce her name. The gal who won the Harvard Book Prize. Spectacular young lady. The prize is actually awarded in May at the awards ceremony at the high school. She got it as a junior, and then in the fall they have a breakfast meeting where they are introduced to Harvard and hopefully get the students to go to Harvard, apply to Harvard. And the fourth is the library is sponsoring a murder mystery, as you have heard me say before. And I just have to say that Gina Davis probably is not going to be the most famous actress from the town of Wareham because I have been given a part that is mind-blowing. The tickets are really cheap at my expense. $30, and I'm sure that the librarians in the back can sell them to you. It is November 22nd, 6:30 to 9:30, and it benefits the Library Foundation. Some of my fellow actors are Jeff Oswald, Robert McDuffie, Ann Eisenmenger, Howie Smith, Kim Shaver-Hood, Ken Fonts, and Denise Medeiros. Come and watch us make idiots out of ourselves. Thank you.
Mr. Tropiano.
I can hardly wait for that, actually. Although we do see Tuesday nights, don't we? I have nothing.
First item is for Mark Lindsay, who's retiring from the EMS after I think it was 33 years or something like that. There'll be an event at the Redmond Hall, October 19th from 6 to 11 o'clock. Tickets are available at the Redmond Hall or at the EMS building. Notice from the Cedar office, Community and Economic Development Authority. They're doing a community development needs strategy for the town of Wareham. It's a public forum scheduled for Thursday, October 24th, 2013 at 5:30 p.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium to discuss the Wareham Community Development Strategy. The purpose of the forum is to take testimony from commissions, organizations, and Wareham residents regarding Wareham's community development needs and strategy. Notice from Municipal Maintenance Department that the National Grid will have a contractor out repaving the portion of Onset Ave where the trench for the newly installed gas line was installed. They will begin work at 7 a.m. on Friday, October 11th. Wareham Historical Society will have a presentation on the 21st of October at 7 p.m. at the Methodist Meeting Hall. The presentation will basically cover the 5 buildings owned by the Wareham Historical Society, talking about condition and recommendations for preservation and improvement. This is part of the warrant article that was passed, I think, last year for them to be able to go ahead and look at the study for their properties. We also have from the Wareham 2014 summer celebration, another fundraiser. This is going to be a wine tasting to benefit the celebration. An eclectic collection of wines will be poured by Wines and More, Wareham Crossing, and paired with delicious appetizers served up by some of our favorite local restaurants. Enjoy delightful piano music and displays of nature photography. Sponsored by the Eastern Bank. This will be Wednesday, November 6th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Eastern Bank, 226 Main Street, Wareham. Note here, music is by Al Russo, and the photo display is from Bob Conway's Nature Photographies. Ticket prices are $20 a person. Contact Eleanor Martin at 508-295-7727. I believe you can also contact Rose Berry at the Eastern Bank. Almost done. For those who did not attend the Wareham Board of Health this past Wednesday, there's been an issue, a health issue on synthetic marijuana and similar types of synthetic drugs. There's been an issue with the kids. They're selling these products at smoke shops, etc. And they basically passed they've actually passed a new health regulation outlawing these particular items. So if you're not sure about it, again, contact the Wareham Board of Health. That's it for today.
I just have one thing. This past week, the town lost a long-standing public servant from adolescence through the date of his death, and that was Onset Fire Department Chief Howard Anderson. And in respect of his memory, I would ask for a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. I guess I'll make the weekly reminder that we've got town meeting coming up. October 28th and 29th are the scheduled dates. It'd be nice if we could get it all done in one night, but that's typically not how it turns out. That's at 7 o'clock in the high school auditorium. Next item, please.
Just to go back one thing on former Chief Anderson's funeral, there'll be at the Gleason Chapel, which is on Cranberry Highway. There'll be, there'll be a viewing in house. I think it's 4 to 7 or 4 to 8 p.m. on Friday.
It's 4 to 8 on Friday. That's correct.
Okay. Then on Saturday at 10 a.m. there'll actually be the service, and there'll be the burial at the Center Park. I would basically notify everybody that it's going to be a very difficult day on Saturday. I'm expecting a very large turnout of people from all over, plus a lot of fire equipment, etc. And everybody also has the event this particular weekend, the 12th and 13th. Makepeace has their annual Cranberry Harvest Festival, which goes right down to Honet Road. And, of course, the Center Park Cemetery is right off to Honet Road, so the traffic is going to be extremely difficult. I'd ask everybody to bear a lot of patience and time, because this will not be an easy weekend. Thank you. Next up will be announcement of Veterans Day Parade Grand Marshal from Mr. White.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As one of the coordinators for Wareham's Veterans Day activities, I get the pleasure tonight of introducing the Grand Marshal for 2013, Mr. Jim Bruce. I don't think Jim needs much of an introduction, but I'll tell you that over the next few weeks, you'll see a lot of him as the representative of the veterans of Wareham. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this has becoming a two-community event. Eventually, I think it will not be called Wareham's Veterans Day activities. I think it'll be called At Least Born Wareham's Veterans Day activities. In any case, this year, the Grand Marshal of our activities will be Mr. Jim Bruce.
To the Selectmen and other guests that are here tonight, thank you so much. I'm going to take maybe 3 minutes of your time. Bob and Sharon visited my office last week a mere few hours before Mary and I left for North Carolina, interestingly enough, and we arrived back home in the dark last night, so the preparation will be succinct and to the point. It's funny how things happen. A couple of weeks ago, had a 50-year high school reunion, and took one evening to meet with a half a dozen of my pals from my class who, in fact, fought in Vietnam. And along that timing issue, we went to North Carolina, specifically to Camp Lejeune, my first time back there in 47 years where I trained, on the occasion of a wedding. But indeed, timing is really something, isn't it? Now conflowing with this wee bit of a task to do this most memorable event. Just for a little bit of fun, over the last 269 years, 2,261 men and women have become veterans on behalf of the United States of America, starting with King George's War, certainly through the Persian Gulf, and some numbers should be updated concerning that. King George's War, the number was 18. World War II, it was 278, and then, of course, the highest mobilized group of men and women on behalf of the United States of America was 685 for World War II. Vietnam was 433. Persian Gulf is 20, and that number obviously needs to be updated, but those wars in particular go from 2 years to 20 in Vietnam. Just interesting numbers for those of us who haven't paid attention to history and paid attention to the courageous people who have represented the United States of America. I want you to know that I am honored, proud, and humbled to have this duty on behalf of Veterans Day, and I really appreciate it very, very much.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I would say that the folks who chose you chose wisely.
Thank you.
And we treasure your service, and we will treasure your representation of that service and the service of all people in Wareham and Bourne and the region who served the country on November 11th.
And we shall.
Mr. Slavin?
Bob, do you want the proclamation and take care of that on November 11th? You want to read it out now?
The proclamation, we hope, will be presented to the Grand Marshal on the 11th.
Okay, I have that here for you now. You can take that with you. I'd also like to personally thank Jim. It's not an easy situation for him. I know it's been very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you.
Jim, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, next item, please. Looking forward to this one.
Next up is a citation for Mark Lindsay. Come on up, guys. Your better half can come too. Whatever.
Come on down.
Come on up. He may be looking for your support after I speak. Well, we're here tonight, and I will first read our certificate of recognition, and then I'm going to tell a little anecdote. The certificate states as follows: Board of Selectmen, Town of Wareham, Massachusetts, 1739. Awards this certificate of recognition to Mark R. Lindsay as one of the original firefighter EMTs of the Town of Wareham's Emergency Medical Services Department, and your more than 33 years with the Town of Wareham as an EMT paramedic. We, the Board of Selectmen, thank you for your years of exemplary service to the Emergency Medical Services Department. As you embark on your much-deserved retirement, we want to take the opportunity to present you with this certificate and let you know that your long-standing commitment to the safety and well-being of our residents and visitors is very much appreciated. Although your job has not been an easy one, you always performed your duties with professionalism and dedication. We, the Board of Selectmen, commend you for the many years of service, and as you retire, we wish you good health and good fortune in your future endeavors. Signed this 8th day of October, 2013. Wareham Board of Selectmen, Peter W. Teitelbaum, Chairman, Alan H. Slavin, Clerk, Stephen M. Holmes, Patrick G. Tropiano, Judith Whiteside. Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you, Peter.
And while Clerk Slavin is walking around to present you with the certificate, I just want everybody to know Mark and I go back a long, long way. We went to school together, I think starting in possibly kindergarten. I was going to say in the Methodist kindergarten, when the Methodist church ran a kindergarten. And we were in the Wareham Public Schools together until I left and went to Tabor Academy. But Mark and I were also friends, and we used to play together and hang out. And I think our mothers were perhaps a little too trusting of us. Because one fine day, I don't remember exactly what season it was, but I was over at Mark's house. We were there unsupervised. And we decided that we were going to play firefighter. And of course, in order to play firefighter, we needed to have some fires. So we found some matches in the house, and we went out into the woods behind his property and proceeded to light little fires in the leaves and stamp them out. Well, one we happened to light that got a little bit away from us. But we had the foresight to go back to the house, call the fire department, have them come down, whereupon we blamed the starting of the fires on some teenagers who were smoking cigarettes. So anyway, Mark's been involved with the fire service on both ends of it just about all his life, and the EMT service and the rescuing of people. So I'd like to think that that event 45 years ago triggered the career that we are honoring tonight. Once again, congratulations, Mark. Okay, next item, please.
This is Alan's favorite, citizens' participation.
Are there any citizens in the audience tonight who'd like to come say anything to the board? Okay, seeing none, next item, please.
Okay, we have consent agenda. I believe we have monthly bills from the law office of Richard Bowen.
Move that we authorize, that we pay the bill from
Second.
law office of Richard Bowen.
A motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. And let's see.
7:30. I'll make a motion to appoint Stephen Ravad, 23 Reservoir Road, Acushnet, Mass., as a certified weigher for his term to expire no later than June 30th, 2014.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400.
Make a motion to appoint Michelle Monroe, 8 Oakwood Road, Mattapoisett, as a certified weigher for a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2014.
Go for it.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, and the race for second was won by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Next item, please.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of September 24th, 2013.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
One abstain.
Okay, 301. Selectman Tropiano abstaining. Next item.
Next item, we have the one-day beer and wine license to the Wareham Library Foundation, care of Carrie Mello.
Good evening. I see we finally driven you to drink.
Didn't take much. So as Selectman Whiteside noted, we're going to be committing murder at the library on November 22nd. It's a kind of a Clue-like murder mystery at the library. We have quite an illustrious cast. She had mentioned some, but it includes the fire chief, the school superintendent, Denise Medeiros, our own librarian, is going to be in the play, and someone, but we're not divulging who will get murdered that night. So it's an opportunity to have a great fundraiser for the library. We made a very large commitment to help fund the library this year of $70,000 from the foundation, and so we really need to do some very vigorous fundraising. And having the one-day liquor license will definitely help the bottom line for this fundraiser. We've approached some local restaurants to do some nice hors d'oeuvres, and we'll be soliciting more of that, and then we'll have desserts and beer and wine. So it should be a great evening. As Selectman Whiteside noted, we have plenty of tickets for sale, so we'll be selling them around town, and they're available at both branches of the library for purchase.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And by the way, I don't know that this has happened by this body before, but thank you very much for stepping up and assisting the operations of the library
Well, I mean,
with
that's
your generosity.
what we're here to do. So
Well, thank you very much. Questions from the board?
You're going to sacrifice a selectman in the play?
I did ask who picked out the characters, and I'm not going to reveal who the characters are, but they did. So apparently I have aggravated a few people. Let's just put it that way.
It was nice to know you, Judy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve a special license for the Wareham Library Foundation, address 59 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., for the date of November 22nd, from the hours of 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. on the premises of 59 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. It's a beer and wine nonprofit.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Anything else on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0.
thank you.
Thank you and good luck with
Thank
your
you.
event.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item, we've got time for these as well, I believe.
Next up, we have Buzzards Bay Productions. I have all the paperwork here. Everything is in place. We have all the forms required.
Okay.
If you'd like to say something about what's going on, if not, we'll just go ahead with it.
Yes, we're going to do Rocky Horror,
Oh.
so that ought to be, I'm told, different. I haven't seen the rehearsals yet, but it's in rehearsal. It starts.
You'll love your audience.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. Anyway, that's what we're doing, and there's a couple of other items in there also, so that's what we need the permits for.
Okay, well, thank you. Anything from the board in terms of questions, or we all set with this? Have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion for a special one-day license for the following dates for Buzzards Bay Productions, 3065 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, for the dates of October 11th, October 19th, October 24th, October 25th, October 26th, October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd of 2013. The hours will be from 7 p.m. to 12 midnight. Again, it will be on the premises of 3065 Cranberry Highway, Wareham. Beer and wine, nonprofit.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. And anything else on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Thank you very much. Your
Thank you,
permit will
folks.
be ready in the office for you. We've only got about 4 minutes before we have a continued evidentiary hearing on the Murphy's Towing application. So I don't know that we really want to undertake anything else up with anybody. Would we like?
We can do sewer A. We're still waiting.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take care of that. What about the, yeah, why don't we take care of the sewer usage rate as well, B? I think we all know how that's going to turn out. Mr. Campina, I'm going to ask you to briefly come up, and then I'm going to have to ask you to go back and wait until we get the hearing through, and then we'll get back to you. We're here on to vote on the sewer usage rate, and I presume that you are still sticking with your initial recommendation, and if you will tell us what that amount is again for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am sticking by my original recommendation of $596 for the fiscal year 2014 to be revisited after we get all the data that we're collecting for the involved in the present study.
Thank you. And just to revisit, this was on our agenda previously, several meetings back. At that time, we received advice of counsel that we were not limited to setting the rate just this one time, that if necessary, we could come back and revisit it. If subsequently we found out after seeing the Tiggy and Bond report or other information that the rate was either inadequate or overstated, either way, that we could come back and make a modification to it. So just in case you see us taking this up again, that would be why. Such a determination would have been apparent on the record and it would come back on the agenda. Would anybody like to speak to this? Selectman Slavin.
This was an issue which I made a statement back a few months ago that I was not going to vote. Matter of fact, I did about 6 months ago. I would not vote for an EDU rate till we had all the numbers, figures, etc. Unfortunately, we will not have everything from tie and bond for another probably month. It looks like the DOR will not be until January, and the issue basically has come up that if we don't basically set the rate, we're going to end up billing people almost double billing at a very difficult time of year. So it's not fair to the citizens to make them suffer financially. So I will go ahead and vote to approve this with the stipulation that next time around, and want to see all the numbers. So when I set a rate that I vote for, I know what I'm voting for, and I can explain it to anybody that asks me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on this?
I'll move the rate of $596 per annum.
Make a motion, we set the EDU rate at $596 for this particular billing cycle.
Second.
Motion made.
Second.
Second by Selectman Tropiano. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
Passed.
You now have your sewer rate. Go ye forth and bill.
Thank you very much. We'll get that done immediately.
Thank you. 301, I'm sorry. Patrick abstained. Okay.
For what? Did you abstain on that? No.
No, I didn't think he did.
No, I didn't.
Sorry.
Okay, 400.
No.
Okay, don't hear well. 7.
The age. It sneaks up on you.
You got about another minute, but if you gentlemen want to come up here and arrange yourselves. And
It sneaks up on you.
Attorney Bowen, why don't you come up as well?
Wouldn't know, huh? What a phone. Yeah, I use it all the time, actually. The guy who wrote it, what's this guy, Mike McGovern from Tennessee? Yeah, he grew up in the towing business. He's an attorney now. He just argued a case. I just saw him a week ago down in just argued a case before the U.S. Supreme Court on towing.
Obviously made a good career. I got something else.
Interstate commerce issues, you know what I mean, because of some regulations.
Okay, once again, we're here to resume the continued hearing on the application of Murphy Towing to be added to the Town of Wareham Police Department tow list. Where we left off, we had already concluded the portion whereby we sought and received considerable public comment. What we were waiting for, in particular, was to have a representative of the Wareham Police Department come forward to apprise us of the most recent recommendations of the police department, and in particular the acting police chief, on this application. So with that in mind, I would call Lieutenant Walczek to come forward. If you would please sit over there next to Selectman Whiteside, and Selectman Whiteside, who is getting you a chair, if you could also turn on the microphone for Lieutenant Walczek as well, that would be helpful. Good evening, Lieutenant.
You talk right into the mic there, Lieutenant.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If the lieutenant's going to be testifying as a witness, you might want to administer the oath, or I'd be happy to do so.
Why don't you go ahead and do that, please?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you. You may be seated.
Again, this is an opportunity for the board. This is kind of an interesting circumstance. Unlike our usual hearings, we're actually sort of sitting here as judges, you might say. on the application, and it's up to us to decide whether to grant the application or to deny it. And in that regard, Attorney Bowen is available to us to answer questions, to make procedural suggestions, but he is not going to be the person who is examining the witnesses, as is typical in our hearing formats here. The questions will be coming from the board. There will be an opportunity for counsel also to ask questions, and then we'll proceed from there. I'll start off with, is there a present recommendation from the chief of police or the acting chief of police as to what course they believe the Board of Selectmen should take upon this application?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Have you brought that recommendation with you tonight?
I have.
Would you be so kind as to read that recommendation into the record for us?
Okay, this is dated September 22nd from Acting Chief Kevin Walsh. For the past several years, 4 tow companies have provided services for the Wareham Police Department on a rotating schedule that is in place to ensure fair and equitable standards for the involved businesses. The current tow list, which consists of Depot Auto, Mark's Auto Service, J&R Towing, and Vaughn's Towing, has served the Wareham Police Department well during the past years, and we look forward to continued partnerships with these businesses. The 4 current tow companies assigned to provide services to the Wareham Police Department have done so in a professional and cooperative manner during their respective tenures, while cooperating with each other at various times and situations to provide the best and most reliable services in a timely and efficient manner. Although situations involving the 4 tow companies have arisen at various times during the years, the issues have been addressed, mediated, and resolved with the goal of providing and maintaining professional services. At this time, adding a 5th tow company to the existing rotating list does not appear to be necessary, as the current number of companies continue to provide sufficient and efficient services to the Wareham Police Department. Adding a 5th company to the existing list would require further administrative actions, including scheduling arrangements and business inspection services. Excuse me. Although the toll list consists of more than 4 companies in the past, the current number of 4 has provided to be manageable and equitable for the Wareham Police Department and the involved companies. Therefore, it is my opinion that the current toll list is sufficient in numbers to professionally provide the services needed by the Wareham Police Department. Should the number of companies assigned to the toll list diminish, an additional companies could certainly be considered, but to add a company at this point in time is not necessary, notwithstanding the respectable and upstanding business practices of any other interested company.
Thank you very much. Before we...
Could we get a copy of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
I see John brought several copies, so that's good. Thank you. Okay, at this point, may we have a motion to enter this correspondence into the administrative record of this proceeding?
Motion so made.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. With that in mind, I will open this up, the witness up to questions from the Board of Selectmen, and then following that, we'll proceed with questions from the applicants, should they so desire. Questions from the board?
It's really nothing that we can ask other than how many were on the tow list before? Do you know?
At varying time, there's been varying numbers, I think up to potentially 7.
7.
Time.
And how long ago was it that there were 7 on the list? Do you know?
Not within the last at least 3.5 years.
3.5 years. So we've had 4 for 3.5 years, but prior to that there were 7?
I can't tell you exactly when there were 7, but at one time, that could have been several years ago. We've worked for the past several years with 4 companies.
Okay. Was when you worked with 7, obviously you were there. You've been here a long time.
Yes.
Was there problems with handling 7?
At that point in my career, I was not in charge of administering them.
Okay.
I was simply either a road officer or a sergeant.
Okay.
So I would call on the radio and
Yeah,
request
they
a
would
record.
handle it. Okay. All right. No problem. Thank you.
Selectman Slavin, any questions?
Lieutenant Walczak, do you have any handling as far as when there's an accident, et cetera, when there's towing, as far as cleanup and everything else?
I'm sorry?
When there's cleanup at the end of a tow and stuff, as far as the issues, are you there for any of that? Or is
Yes,
that-
I have
okay.
been.
I've noticed that sometimes when there's an accident and there's a tow done, I was looking through the regulations do require that, there be a proper, complete cleanup of all debris.
Correct.
And I just noticed that was an issue. I also noticed on Acting Chief Walsh's report that there was some issues that they had with tow companies that they had, but it said that he's basically resolved all the issues. So is that the case at this point in time?
Yes, at various times, there may be an issue with, we couldn't get through to one company for one reason or another, very rarely, but the next company in line would step right up, or, they call back, and I would say that's very seldom.
Thank you.
Selectman Whiteside, any questions?
No, thank you.
Lieutenant Walczek, just for, I guess, my edification, could you tell us roughly how many accidents or abandoned vehicles or other matters which require the towing of a vehicle, how many incidents do the police respond to and request a tow for each year, roughly? If you could just give us some ballpark figures.
I would say over 700, rough. I would say a fair estimate is over 700.
So probably a couple a day then.
Yes, on average.
In the time that you're aware of here, going back the past several years, with the existing tow companies, has there ever been an occasion when you could not get a vehicle towed because none of the four were available to tow?
No. Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And again, to reiterate, I assume you've read this correspondence?
I have.
Do you concur with the acting chief's assessment that the four present towing companies are sufficient for the needs of the town?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions. I'll open it up to council.
If I may.
Yes.
Lieutenant, is
You
your-
need to speak.
I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah, this has to become your lover for the night, unfortunately.
Okay.
You have to put your mouth right up next to it.
All right. Lieutenant, in your capacity as a police officer, are you the tow officer for the
I am.
And how long have you occupied that position?
Since my promotion to lieutenant in
And-
September 2010.
Okay, 2010. And how long have you been a police officer?
I started in Wareham in May of 1987 as a summer special, and August of '89 I came out full-time.
Okay. So you were here when Murphy's made their original application to be on the tow list, correct?
Yes.
And at that time, you're aware there was 7 companies on the tow list, correct? And are you aware that under Chief Joyce that he had actually written a letter to the town recommending that they have 7 businesses, 7 tow companies?
I'm not aware of that letter.
May I approach and show him the letter?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Gotta stay with that microphone.
Sorry, you're tethered to the thing tonight, Counselor.
I'm sorry. If you could just take a moment and read it. If the board likes, I also have copies that I can show you of the letter. Yeah, one of them is going to be shy one because I've got him reading it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
I've got a copy of the folder so that we won't be short.
One of those packages might be, well, I got one. You're going to be one package shy because he's got the letter. Did you have an opportunity to read that?
I did.
Okay, and you see from that letter that the chief had indicated that he felt that the rotation of 7 was an ideal number, correct?
He did.
And he felt because every night you could assign a different company
Correct.
to the list.
According to this correspondence, yes.
Yeah, and who was that written to? that
That
correspondence?
was written to John McAuliffe, the town administrator, on
And-
March 3rd, 2008.
Okay. All right. And so, and he felt that at that time, that it was efficient to have that many companies on the list, correct?
According to the chief at the
Okay.
time, yes.
By the time you took over in 2010, there was no longer, correct?
Correct. I was inherited 4.
And what happened to the other people that had been on the list prior to that?
I don't know specifically on all the companies. I know that one company definitely left on their own, and I know at the time that I believe Lieutenant Wallace had cautioned them about, leaving, that it might not be so easy to get back on the list. And I don't, that's the only one particular that I remember seeing some kind of correspondence on.
Now, the practice at that time was that when somebody left the list, that the next person who was on the waiting list would be considered, correct?
That could be. It hasn't been my experience, though.
Prior to your appointment or after your appointment?
Post my appointment as a lieutenant, I have never had that waiting list or anybody saying to me there's some sort of waiting list.
Do you remember that it used to be that way?
I remember there were multiple companies at one time, and I know that a couple of companies made application in maybe early 2011, and at the time, Chief Stanley had requested that the number go down to two companies.
To 2 companies?
Correct.
And that wasn't decided, who made the decision not to go to 2?
I don't think there was any. It was actually, I believe the Board of Selectmen voted in 2011 to go down to 2 through attrition.
Through attrition? Okay. So whoever just was left over would get those positions?
Presumably.
It didn't have anything to do with who was providing the best service?
I wouldn't say anybody. I wouldn't say any one company was providing better service than another.
Okay. All right. Now let me ask you something. There's a requirement in the rules that you have a location right here in town, correct?
Yes.
And do you know the purpose of that rule? Why?
I know they have to have a business permit here and such.
Okay. But do you know why it's required that you have actual location right here in the town?
I can't tell you the foundation of it now.
Okay. So you don't know any reason at all?
I know that that's in the rules.
Okay. What about response times? Do you know what the response times are?
Yeah. What is it? 30 minutes during the day, daytime hours, and 20 minutes at any other time.
Okay. And do you know the purpose of that?
I think it's just to ensure efficient response.
So that they can be there on time.
Correct.
Okay. Then there's also equipment requirements, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what does the town do regarding a check-in to see if the companies have all the equipment they need?
I actually physically went out to the companies.
Okay. The 4 companies that are there now?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever gone out before and to Murphy's?
I have not.
Okay. Do you know what kind of equipment they have?
I've seen their equipment, yes.
Okay. Do you think it's adequate to do the job here in the town?
It appears they have adequate equipment.
Okay. In all the years you've been a police officer, have you ever had the opportunity to call them for a private tow?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Any complaints regarding the services that they had provided?
No, and I also served for 2 years as a Rochester police officer, so I worked with them directly at that time.
Okay. And you know where their main business is located, correct?
Yes.
And that's right over the town line, correct?
Yes.
Do you think there's anything about that location that would stop them from getting to any location within the town of Wareham in a timely manner?
Not from their physical location, no.
And then, are you aware that they are renting a spot, I believe, at Discount Auto Body?
Yes, I did hear that.
Okay. Anything that you say about that lot that's not compatible?
I have to be honest, I have not physically checked that lot.
You've never gone down and looked at it?
No.
Okay. Are you aware that prior to this, that Lieutenant Irving Wallace had gone down and looked at that lot when they made their original application in 2006?
He may have.
Okay. Can I approach?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And you had a chance to review that,
I
correct?
did.
Now,
Actually, could we, if we're going to
oh,
have that
somebody
as a
else.
witness, I have a copy of that as well.
Sure, I
for the
think it
record.
should be in the package, but if
What
you
was the
don't-
date of the correspondence? I can have the
The
clerk
date
check.
of the correspondence was January 15, 2008,
Okay.
to John McCullough from...
Okay, yeah, I think I've got it right here.
Do you have it there?
Yep.
Okay,
The first sentence reads, on January 6, 2008, chips towing, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
we have it.
Now, and based on that, is it your understanding that back at that time, they indicated that that location would be fine to be on the list here in the town?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is the procedure if a company, say a company leaves today, the list, and it opened up, what would be the procedure in place right now to replace that company?
There would be no replacement.
So if you went from 4 to 3, you think that would be enough?
That was what the order of the chief was in 2011, to go down to 2 companies. He had come down and he had actually spoken to me, and he said he felt 2 companies was sufficient.
Do you know
Chief
that?
Stanley.
Yeah. Do you know what the basis of that was? That decision was?
I believe the basis of that decision was his 27 years experience as a chief in North Andover, where they had apparently 2 companies.
And so he felt North Andover was the same as Wareham?
I can't say that. All I know is that that's what he had directed me.
How long had he been here at that time?
2 years.
He had been 2 years, okay. And how long was he there after that decision?
He's still presently.
The chief?
Yeah, he's on leave right now, but yes.
Okay. And so is that the policy that's in place right now, that there should only be two companies?
It's my understanding that that was voted by the Selectmen in a decision in 2011.
Do you have that as a record? Okay. And when was that done? What year was that?
I believe it was 2011.
Okay. Now you're aware though that Murphy's made their application to be on this list prior to that rule change, correct?
I actually don't know when they applied.
Okay. If I told you that they applied 2006 and then again in 2008, would that?
I would assume by what I'm seeing here for the correspondence from Lieutenant
Yeah.
Wallace and Chief Joyce that you're correct.
Okay. And yet, and other places, other companies have left in that time, correct?
Yes.
And they were never placed or considered to be put on the list at that point, correct?
Apparently not.
Even though they had all the equipment they needed?
It's hard for me to speak for a past administration,
Okay.
where I was not in a position of power to make those kinds of decisions. So I don't know exactly what the story was with it.
Is there a requirement by the town that the company actually have a business in town, or they have to be a resident, or is it just that they have to have a location in town?
I say it's a location in town.
Okay, so their business could be located outside town as long as they have a location in town, correct?
They have a permit here, yes, to operate in Wareham in
And so
a
they have a business,
yard.
and you're aware that they do have a business permit here, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so that would satisfy that requirement.
I would say.
Do you know how many square miles of road that's located within the confines of Wareham?
I can't give you the land areas over 40 square miles, including inland waterways, but
Okay.
35 square miles of land. I can't tell you the exact number of roadway.
And you sometimes are called not only to the regular town roads, but also sometimes you're called out to the highways?
We are.
And would that be 195, and that'd be 25 and 495?
Yes.
Okay. And are there ever times when you have more than one call going on at once?
Yes.
And that you need more than one company, correct?
Yes.
And are there ever any times when one company needs to call in another company because they have inadequate equipment?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware that sometimes Murphy's is called in those situations because they have the type of equipment that's needed?
It could be.
Okay. But they're not included on your list.
They are not. And the state police might summon them for the
And
highway.
you're aware that they are on the state police list, correct?
And that could be.
And they're also on Mattapoisett and all the neighboring towns, correct?
I didn't know that.
Okay, you're not aware of it? All right. Do you know Mr. Murphy?
I do.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions.
Would the board like to ask any follow-up questions of having heard this lengthy examination? Would the board like to ask any follow-up questions of Lieutenant Walczak? Okay, I think you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Well, we're at the stage where we're pretty much concluded the gathering of evidence in this matter. I think what we'll do is, much like what happened in a bench trial, we will have findings of fact here, and then base our decision upon those factual findings. But in the meantime, if you would like to deliver a closing argument, so to speak,
Thank you.
we'll certainly allow you that privilege.
I thank you very much. Appreciate it. One of the things I think that I understand where we're right now. The lieutenant was here, and I know he's in an acting capacity, and I think he's even representing the acting chief. So some of the discussion I might want to ask the chief or the acting chief, we weren't able to get into. But I think the operative, for the purposes of what's going on here today, the operative time that we should be looking at is not today, because we're here on a remand from something that happened on a previous board. And at that time, when the application was made here, the issue was this. Based on the procedures, you can see the letters yourself that Chief Joyce and also Lieutenant Wallace had placed on it. The procedure at that time, and the case that we brought in the Superior Court was based on the deprival of procedural due process. The procedure at that particular time was that you had 7 companies, and if anybody left, then whoever was on the waiting list at the top of the list would go. Previous to this, back in 2006, the Murphys were on the list. They applied just after 2 other companies. 2 openings came up, 2 companies went ahead of them. One of them was Chips. All right. Then, several years later, one of those 2 companies falls off, and they're the next in line. And they should have been placed on the list at that particular time, and that's the issue, is what should have been done back then. Now, I understand that the current chief, for whatever reason, which I can't get into, I don't understand his reasonings as to why you would want 4 as opposed to 7 as opposed to 2, because that evidence isn't before you. All you have is that he feels it's adequate. I can't ask him the question, well, what about 7? And I can't even ask why would 2 be a good number, just because the town of Andover, north of Boston, has 2. So I think the operative thing is this. I think that one of the things I was glad to hear, based on the officer's understanding, and I think would be my understanding, is that the provision in your bylaws that requires, or the policies that requires, you have a location in town doesn't mean the business itself has to be located in town, so long as you have a location in town. And I think the evidence that was presented by the landlord last time is that, even ever since then, my client has had a lease relationship, and if they were placed on this list, they would be able to operate and bring vehicles to that particular location. One of the things that concerned me, though, in the last meeting was that some of the people who spoke were indicating that that the list should be kept at its current level because of monetary reasons. The fact is that, that they're barely eking out, that they're on the list and they're just barely getting by. I would tell you that that's an improper consideration based on the law for you to make. The purpose of the list is for public safety. And the consideration of how much a company makes, or 1 company or 2 companies or maybe 3 companies or even 4 companies make, is not a proper consideration for you to take into consideration. That has nothing to do with public safety. Okay, Response times have to do with public safety. You know, locations so citizens can go get their car safely. That has to do with public safety. Okay, having the proper equipment to do the job, public safety. You know, but that doesn't. The area of towing. I by the way, which is an arcane thing. I do towing law. That's what I do. How you get into that, I don't know. But one of the things is that basically towing is deregulated by the federal government. There was an act that deregulated. There's only a very small part that's allowed to be regulated, and those are police-ordered, non-consensual tows. That's it. And that's what these lists are for, is if a person becomes disabled and they need somebody to call for them, it's a police-ordered. Non-consensual means that they can't even consent because of it, they've been brought to the hospital or whatever. Generally, I would just tell you, a town of this size, I think four is too small. And I would tell you that I believe that 2 is too small. And I believe right now that if you look at Chief Joyce's letter, where he went into pretty good detail why he thought 7 was good, I think that was the appropriate number then. When the spot opened up, my clients were on the list. They were ready to go. They were licensed here in town as a business. They should have been placed on the list back then. And we would ask you to go, based on the clerk's remand here for this purpose, we would ask you that you place them on the list, so that going forward they can, provide service to the town. Thank you.
Thank you for your closing. Well, at this point, I think we're all set with the hearing itself. So why don't we have a motion to close the hearing?
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. The hearing is now closed. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now is the time to deliberate amongst ourselves on the record that's been presented to us. And again, first, I think it would behoove us to agree or not agree to find certain facts in this case. And upon those facts, I think, is where the foundation of any decision needs to lie. So in accordance with that, I think that we should move to find that 4 tow companies have provided services for the Wareham Police Department on a rotating schedule for several years, and that the current tow list consists of Depot Auto, Mark's Auto Service, J&R Towing, and Vaughn's Towing. Would somebody like to make that motion, or?
Motion so made.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Whiteside. Is there any discussion to be had on this proposed factual finding?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. Now, the next issue here is whether we are going to move to add or to move to deny. And I think there needs to be some discussion amongst us before we proceed to that. So with that in mind, I'll start with Selectman Tropiano.
Hey. All right. Well, this is how I feel about this, and this is just listening to the evidence and so on. It seems obvious to me that the chief, original chief, in some capacity decided that it was a good idea to have 7. The letter's quite clear. However, I'm sort of against this whole thing of limiting any of this between you and I. I think that the marketplace should limit it. I think the marketplace should be in control of it. I think that the police should be able to call whoever they want, frankly. I think this is government interfering with the operation of a business. And I don't think we should defend or protect any business. I think if a business gives good service, then people go to them. If they give bad service, people don't go to them. And all this does is not improve services, make services worse, as far as I'm concerned. And so I intend to vote in favor to add them to the list. And you know what? I add 7 more people, as far as I'm concerned, to the list. I don't see any reason why anybody should be excluded from the list at all, ever. And that's just how I feel about it.
Well, thank you. This is actually sort of in the nature of polling, you might say, before we proceed with the motion, so just procedurally, so everybody understands what's going on. Selectman Whiteside.
I would echo Mr. Tropiano's feelings in terms of limiting people's ability or businesses' ability to do business. It's just contrary to what I believe in terms of the free market system. On the other hand, we have a recommendation from the current chief, and as a department head, he is responsible for making the decisions that affect the safety and welfare of the town. So, I'm thinking. I'm on thinking mode right now.
Okay.
Okay, you're not going to have too much longer to think. I'm just going to warn you of that.
I got that part.
Selectman Slavin?
I've gone through the regulation, quite thoroughly, went back through the three different letters, etc. At the end of the day, I can only basically make my decision based on today. I really can't go back to tomorrow because things change and are constantly in flux. The way the regulation is set up, the way it is, we basically issue a license based on the recommendation of the police department. They're the ones that have to oversee the whole operation. They're the ones we depend on. No one on this board is an expert in towing any of the functions at all. So at the end of the day, I have to make my decision based on what the police department recommends, because that's the one who controls the whole process. So in this particular case here, I'm basically going to vote to go ahead with the 4.
Okay. This is not that easy a call, but I do have to agree, I think, with Selectman Slavin on the nature of the deference this board needs to show the police department in such matters. If you look at the regulations, it really almost seems as though it's a delegation of authority to the police department to make that determination. The reason we're hearing this tonight is because you had a prior Board of Selectmen that made a decision without allowing you the opportunity to be heard. In a hearing such as this, where you could come in, state your case, examine witnesses, go through documents, look back at the record, and all of that. Frankly, Counselor, I think you did a very nice job. However, the difficulty I have is essentially what we're being asked to do is to rely upon what people said 5 years ago and 7 years ago, and it's difficult to do that and yet show what I think the board should show in terms of the proper deference and knowledge and experience of the current police administration. We do have, again, a more recent recommendation than the 2008 letter that's dated September 22nd, 2013 from the acting chief of police, who, by the way, has been a cop in this town for 28 years. So he's pretty familiar with the town. I know we didn't ask that during the actual hearing portion, but I did want that to be known. This is not somebody coming in from some other town and trying to import his experiences from there to here. The current recommendation comes from somebody who's been a cop for a good long time.
I want to follow up when you're done. Okay?
Yeah. So I would be inclined, unfortunately, to vote against the application. Again, a fine presentation. This is in no way reflects any feelings that your client isn't fit to do the job. I think they established that they certainly got the equipment. Even Lieutenant Walczyk sung your praises when he was up here talking about his experiences with you in Rochester. So anyway, Selectman Tropiano?
I just want to point out one thing to my fellow board members about this. Part of the testimony that came from Mr. Wallachek as he was being examined by the attorney here was that, in fact, that there are times when they need to call Murphy's Towing anyway, because he's the one who has the equipment in order to make a certain thing happen. And the other tow companies apparently don't have all the equipment, otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Just 1 second. There's no public commentary. There's no more evidence to be presented here. I understood, actually, Lieutenant Walczek to say that perhaps the state police might call them in, but I did not hear Lieutenant Walczek say that he had called them in.
Actually, that's not true. If we go back and listen to the record, then he followed up with a question and said, Wareham Police, and he said yes. So Wareham Police have, and I hope they're not cutting off their nose to spite their face for somebody they actually need in certain times. You know what I'm saying? Because this guy has more equipment than the others. And I don't know that's true. I only know what I heard from the testimony. See what I'm saying? And I'm going by that, and I just want you board members to realize that if Murphy's Towing isn't available, that may cause them a problem down the road if there's some piece of equipment that they need that is necessary for the state police or somebody else to call them in. And it was in the testimony. I'm just kind of pointing it out to you that obviously they must have some equipment that maybe others don't have. I don't know. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called in on top of another tow company, if you know what I'm saying.
Well,
and that scares me a little bit.
Well, to follow up on that, apparently I misheard, but even assuming that to be the case, and that Wareham does have the occasion to call upon the services of Murphy's Tow for some esoteric equipment that maybe other companies don't have, are you suggesting that they would not come to Wareham if they would turn down business that they've been accepting all along?
I'm going to tell you, if it was me, I wouldn't. I wouldn't come. If you blackballed me like that, I wouldn't come. I'd say, you know what, find somebody else. I'd do that. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know. Business is business, Patrick. But anyway, we can't speculate as to what they would do in the future.
Well, exactly.
I don't think that that's really our place here.
What I'm saying is relevant. What I'm saying is relevant according to the testimony we heard.
Okay, fair enough. Is there anything else at this time? Well, we have...
May I just ask a question? Is it proper to ask for the reading of the remand order?
In other words, you're curious to know what the court expects of us?
I'm interested in hearing what the remand order says.
You know, I'm going to ask for Attorney Bowen's advice on that.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Ms. Whiteside, neither council have the remand order with us. Our recollection of what it says probably differs in some detail as to
Then let's not confuse the board with two different readings of the remand order, if that's the case. Not having it available, then my understanding was that the remand was for the purposes of holding a hearing. That's typically the case when the claim is one of due process or the lack thereof. In this case, that a decision was made without a hearing, that the party against whom the decision was made did not have the opportunity to come in, as has the towing company over the past couple of meetings, to plead their case, to come up with their evidence, and to examine witnesses. So that's typically what you will see in a remand order for a hearing, is the court doesn't want to substitute its judgment. It wants to send it back to the people who should be the fact finders, namely the local authorities, to do their jobs. And then, of course, it's possible tonight that if these people are aggrieved by our decision, they will file an appeal again. I wouldn't be shocked. But nonetheless, This is the purpose of this hearing, is to comply with the court order to give them the due process to which they were entitled to in the first place.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're at the decision point here, unless any of my fellows wishes to bat this around some more. Okay, then we will need a motion to find that adding a fifth tow company to the existing rotating list is not necessary because the current number of companies does provide sufficient and efficient services to the Wareham Police Department. Adding a fifth company to the existing list requires further administrative actions such as, no, I don't even see what the point of that is. Again, move to find that adding a fifth tow company to the existing rotating list is not necessary because the current number does provide sufficient and efficient services to the Wareham Police Department. This is the essence of the decision, but it's in the nature of making a factual finding to that effect. So an I vote means you find that there are enough, and you are essentially denying the applicant here. There will be some additional findings of facts after the vote, depending on what the vote is. So do we have a maker of the motion?
Motion so made.
Do we have a second?
The motion is to deny.
Yes.
I will second of necessity.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Aye. Abstain? The motion carries 2-1-1. Next up, we need to make the following factual finding, and the motion would be, although the tow list had more than 4 companies in the past, the current number of 4 is proven to be fully sufficient to protect public safety and convenience and manageable for the Wareham Police Department.
Motion so made.
And we need a second.
I'll second it. Could you read it again, please, sir?
Yes, the motion would be that, or the factual finding would be that, although the tow list had more than 4 companies in the past, the current number of 4 has proven to be fully sufficient to protect public safety and convenience and manageable for the Wareham Police Department. So motion made by Selectman Slavin,
And I seconded it.
seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
That carries 2-1-1. And the final factual finding would be to move to find that the current tow list is sufficient in number to professionally provide the services needed by the Wareham Police Department, and that there is not any public need to add further companies to the tow list.
Motion so made.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
2-1-1. And then the final decision here, which fortunately you gentlemen already know, this is what it's coming down to. Need a motion to deny the request to be added to the tow list.
I move to deny the request to be added to the tow list.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
Yes.
That motion passes 2-1-1. That concludes this matter.
Thank you. I would just ask you to preserve the notes that you were reading from for discovery purposes.
Certainly.
Because they look like they were done prior to the meeting.
I'd like to thank everybody involved. You know, this is a little bit arduous. You come to a selectmen's meeting and it turns into a courtroom. It's not a lot of fun for anybody. But the matter's been decided, and that's that. Next up, please. Mr. Campina, come on back.
I get it, but it's not, I mean,
Okay, we're up to item number C on our agenda under sewer business. This is the reconsideration of the sewer betterment abatement for 2 Preservation Lane, map 54, lot P31, in the amount of $18,000. Would you tell us what this is all about, Mr. Campina, for the board's edification?
I believe it was August 20th, I believe we took this up originally, and it was included in the betterment requests for the properties on Agawam, and this was included and was denied in that bunch. This particular abatement stands on its own merit because it's a lot that has been declared a drainage easement, and by virtue of that, it's unbuildable. So it was wrong to include it in that list of the other properties that were next to Preservation Lane and on Agawam bordering Cremisa Road. So I'm asking the board to bring this, to reconsider the denial at that time and granting the abatement to that piece of property that can't be used for anything but a drainage easement per planning board design, and in the covenant, it is unbuildable.
Selectman Slavin?
I went over the minutes. I believe we simply, for the public, we made an error. We lumped that in with the other 3 that we denied by accident.
And I think we all can agree to that, and so I take as much as responsibility as all of us.
No, doesn't matter. It's here.
So yeah, absolutely.
It's here to be fixed. Any other questions from the board? Are the petitioners aware that if through some miraculous and fortuitous occurrence, such as a change in the law or a change in the conditions of the property somehow, that they themselves did not arrange, some act of God, for example, the lot becomes buildable, that they're going to have to pay the going rate at the time to hook in?
Absolutely. All of these abatements that are dealing with the abatement of the betterment, that is made perfectly clear that at a later date, and at that time, we can even guarantee it to be $18,000. It is whatever the going rate is. So we do our very best to explain that. But as I read the covenant and understand it, that it would take quite an act to get this to be buildable.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else on the question?
My one question is, do we vote first to rescind the original refusal, then?
But we have to vote to reconsider it. Don't we have to vote to reconsider
Yeah,
it?
procedurally, yeah, why don't we vote to rescind the prior vote? Make a motion to rescind the prior vote regarding this property.
Make a motion to rescind the prior vote of the board not to
Abate.
provide the betterment
Not to provide the abatement.
abatement, sorry.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Slavin,
For 2 Preservation Lane.
2
map
Preservation Lane.
54, lot P31, in the amount of $18,000. Second.
Thank you.
yeah, what she said. Okay. Anything else on the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Okay, now we need a motion to approve
I'll make a motion
The
to award a betterment
abatement.
for 2 Preservation Lane.
abatement. You keep saying awarding a betterment. You keep wanting to stick these poor people with a betterment.
It's a betterment abatement.
There you go.
Map 54, lot P31, in the amount of $18,000.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 4-0-0. And next up, we have a series of some water shutoffs, I believe.
Yes, water shutoffs, demolished properties, rebuild, some that haven't been inhabited. So we can go through them. I think the first one is map 50D, lot 475, 6 Shore Ave.
Yes.
That house was demolished in 2011. And I think what's confusing here for us was that it was put on briefly in 2012 for construction purposes. And so technically, when water goes on, we reset, but there was no facility to use. So I think that was a confusion. The house is demolished. It's still being rebuilt. There's no permit to occupy the property per the building inspection. So it is demolished piece of property still. And putting the water on briefly to do some construction part, I believe shouldn't have taken away their right to be, at the very least, on hold, so the count's on hold, but abated because they, at the time we're speaking of, they had no facilities and no movement of water into the sewer.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else the board would like to know about this one? No? What a motion.
Make a motion to do an abatement for 6 Shore Ave, account number 738787, map 50D, lot 475, in the amount of $596.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. The abatement is granted.
And the next one, Mr. Chairman, map 2, lot 105, and also has the account number at 145 Onset Ave. That property has been vacant for quite some time. In 2005, the water was shut off. So when the letter was sent to us by the individual to abate, I couldn't go back to 2005, I can only go back 1 year. So that's the 298. It's actually a half a year, and that's all that he can get for an abatement. I got to ignore the rest of the years. So I'm asking to abate him 298, and I've already put the count on hold.
Okay. Any questions on the board? No?
Make a motion for an abatement at 145 Onset Ave, account number 735993, map 2, lot 105, in the amount of $298.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin and seconded by Selectman Whiteside this time. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. I'll take laughter as saying aye. Next one, please.
Mr. Chairman, this is 3137 Cranberry Highway that no longer exists. It was the old White Pines Motel. It's been demolished. It's gone.
Praise Jesus.
Yes. Yes, it is. And the new owner, as says Guy Prestige Properties, has requested an abatement for quite some time, and he actually became the owner in I believe it's July of 2012. So that's when the clock began for him, and that's as far as we're going to go. And so we're asking for a 1 month abatement of $980.20 and 92 cents. I'm sorry.
1 month?
1 month.
1 month?
Yes,
Motion
1
not
month.
made, but seconded by Selectman Tropiano. Let's have a motion, please.
Make a motion for
And then we'll
abatement
entertain.
for 3137 Cranberry Highway, account number 736724, map 8, lot 1025A, in the amount of $980.92.
Go ahead, Ms. Whiteside.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400.
Mr. Chairman, for clarification, it was a motel plus many other outbuildings, so there was apartments, there was quite a bit, so just
Yeah,
for
no,
clarification.
you can certainly tell that from the amount, and it's a 1 month abatement. You're talking about $11,000 something dollar annual bill, and
Correct.
this is 1 month that's been abated, so. Next up, we have discussion of your proposed grease ordinance.
I believe copy was provided. I don't know if everybody has a copy. And what we're pretty much saying is that in the town of Wareham, we have restaurants, and all we're asking, and if you read the ordinance, is to be able to move forward and to strongly encourage, mandate, however you want to term it, the language, to pump grease traps, exterior and interior. Title V, the Title V law provides a provision for pumping of grease traps for properties that are not on sewer. And when I contacted the DEP, they said that we have the option and right as a sewer department, and the sewer commissioners can take up the same provision provided in Title V and apply that to sewer. So it's a policy of pumping grease traps regularly to keep the excessive grease from coming into the sewer system. If you remember the backup we had at West Central, that was a grease backup.
Yep.
And that became detrimental to the bay. I also have some, and I'll give them to you, properties that discharge into our pump station raw oil. We also have properties that put greater than 100 milligrams per liter of grease into the system, and so we had to jet rod that entire line, cost of the town. With this policy in place, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, our hope is to educate, and we had sent out flyers, I have a copy of that, what we sent out to all 5,000 of our customers explaining that how detrimental grease is to the system. We're hoping to be able to penalize. So, example, if somebody does violate the 100 milligrams per liter, then we can establish a penalty. At the very least, have them pay for all the cleanup of that we have to go through to rectify the problem. So, I feel strong that this is a move in the right direction. I also want to say that last year we sat in front of the Board of Health, presented the same thing, because we wanted their assurance if the policy wasn't followed, that they would take act as issuing the license, that they would work in conjunction with us, and they assured us that they will. They took a vote on it, and they assure us that they will cooperate with us to make sure that we have a regulatory hand if we need it. So I think it's a good move. It's going to save us money, time, and also anytime we have a SSO or sewer back up into the bay, we deal with the EPA and fisheries and many people, and they discourage it. So this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you. We don't have this scheduled for a vote. This was just for a discussion, which really means introduction, where you have invoked the Board of Health and reference a vote there. I think it would be wise to get that to the members so that they can see that, see what the vote was. And so if you can get that, or Mr. Sullivan can get that to us, that I think would be helpful for when it does come time to vote. But in the meantime, does anybody have any questions? Selectman Whiteside?
Can you explain, because I understand what you're going for and driving at, but a restaurant has an outside, tell me what happens.
It says there's internal and external grease traps, and in the language here, we also provided a glossary, talks about an interceptor. And what happens is, under these 3-bay sinks, the restaurant, as they prepare food, it goes into the 3-bay sinks of water and all the other things, and it goes into the sewer system, but before it gets there, it goes to this box, if you will, and it's got a baffle in it, so it holds back all the grease and lets just the water come to us. And with an external trap, it also goes to the external trap, and the same thing happens.
But
I thought I had a picture for you. So what the purpose of a grease trap is to keep the grease in that 1,500, 2,000, 5,000, whatever capacity that tank is, to hold it there so it doesn't come to the system. The same thing is we think of grease when your doctor talks about your cholesterol, your arteries. Same thing. What happens to the lines is they just, a 6-inch line becomes 4-inch, becomes 3-inch. So it increases the cost of transporting the sewer, because now I have smaller pipes. It also, by creating these smaller pipes, it slows the flow down, and then the grease and debris will drop out. Then you have a backup into the manhole, and then into the waterway or the roadway. So the whole purpose of a grease trap is to collect the grease. And so what happens is, grease is usually lighter than water, the specific gravity, so grease floats to the top of the water. And you put baffle down to the bottom of the tank. And so what happens, the water goes to the bottom, because grease rises to the top. It goes in the baffle, that's probably down 24, 30 inches, and it goes up the baffle, or the sanitary tee, and out to the system, thereby trapping the grease, so it stays right there. So it doesn't get introduced into the system and causing the system some issues. And not to mention treating it at the treatment plant. Okay.
And so, but do restaurants normally have their grease traps pumped?
They're supposed to. The DEP rules and regulation, I read it to you, says grease traps shall be inspected monthly and shall be cleaned by a licensed sepsis hauler whenever the level of grease is 25% of the effective depth of the trap, or at least every 3 months, whichever is sooner. And this is Title V. I believe it's 310 CMR, specific 15350 and 351. So that's
who's supposed to inspect it once a month?
It's the responsibility of the restaurant owner. And what they would do is they would hire a pumper and say, inspect it, because what I don't want to do is penalize somebody that doesn't put out a lot of grease, maybe a seasonal place or something along that line. So an inspection will determine, because what they do is they sludge judge the grease. So they measure it, and they know the depth of the tank, and they say, okay, example, the tank is 5 feet, and I've got 3 feet of grease. Oh my goodness, that's greater than 25%, I must pump it. And by having them do that regularly and filling out a report as to what it is, then we can set up some long-term, the restaurant themselves, long-term pumping, because every 3 months may not be enough for some restaurants. Some restaurants should be monthly. We have some in the mall that we're working with now. And they're reluctant, but you got to be forceful, but some should pump every month. Also in the regulations, we're saying internal traps must be pumped monthly because they're small. And so they must be pumped monthly. And it's a cost. I agree. It's a cost to the restaurateur. It's a cost of doing business. And I think if you want to cut corners someplace when it comes to your cost reduction, they don't see the harm because it doesn't go to their system. If in Title V, where there's no sewer, people that go to their own leach field, they consider it because it clogs up their leach
Doesn't it
field.
come back up?
Yeah, it'll plug everything up, and,
Yeah.
and so now they're going to replace their leach field at quite a cost. But the assumption is, well, it's going to the sewer, no harm, no foul, to me, because it's just going to go out. And we're saying there is a harm, there is a foul. It costs more money to move the product through the lines. We have backups. It costs more to treat it at the plant. So all we're saying is do your part, pump it out and get rid of it legally, and we'll do our part, provide you a place to get rid of your sewer, and we'll treat that. So that's the gist or the motivating factor for this ordinance.
And at your plant, you do have a grease receptor, am I correct?
We accept grease, so the restaurateur could pump the grease and have a place to go, because one of the problems in Massachusetts, and actually New England in general, is the limited amount of places to take grease. There's been a lot of mandates for grease, but there's been no facilities provided. So there's a few coming up. I think CMAS is the most recent that's trying to come online with grease in Connecticut, and so they're popping up to get rid of the grease.
But
So
you do have one?
yes, we do. We can
Okay,
take the
thank
grease,
you.
so we wouldn't hurt anybody.
Any other questions for Selectman Slavin?
I have a couple questions, so put up with me.
Absolutely.
First off, is this going to be a policy of the sewer commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Are you required, or do we need to have a public hearing on this to get input?
I don't believe so, but I'm not a lawyer, and so I think that's something we'd ask counsel, but I don't believe so. I think it's a policy.
Luckily enough, we have one of those
discretion
sitting right over there.
of the board.
He just went and left the room, so didn't want to listen to that one. Sorry, Rich.
And I guess the next question that would be, has council had an opportunity to review the proposed grease policy? And if not, I think that would be good before we
I think I got to
take
say
action.
this. I think I left them off my list of I sent to the town hall.
Geez, he's the first one you should have sent it to.
Well, I just assume he gets everything. That's dangerous to assume, so I apologize. And I will get him a copy. Matter of fact, I'll give him my copy. And then because I've got one that's all busted up. This is the draft.
I get the busted up one?
No, you're getting the new one. I got the busted up one here. And this is the inspection form you're saying. This is the grease, the water, the solids. And this is what the pumper does. He inspects it. He does his calculations. And he says, yes, it needs to be pumped. It doesn't need to be pumped. He fills it up and you get a copy of that.
A lot for you to sink your teeth into there.
Instant decision.
No, I don't like it when people
Where's
do
the
it to me,
magic
so I
eight
don't do
ball?
it to others.
Title V regulations.
I'm sorry,
This is in the
so
nature.
Selectman Slavin, could you restate the question for
Yeah.
him?
My question was simply on this, which is going to be a regulation per se through the sewer commissioners. Is it going to require a public hearing, or should it have a public hearing to make sure we don't have to go back and redo things?
You can't go wrong with a public hearing. If this were the Board of Health, you'd be doing a public hearing and a newspaper advertisement. Sewer commissioners don't have that level of formality, but where you're going to be imposing new standards on people just for due process reasons, you can never go wrong with a public hearing.
Thank you.
Is that actually required by Chapter 83?
I don't believe so.
No.
I don't either. But it would be your advice, just as general rulemaking procedure, to do this.
With Mr. Chairman, yes, because, well, not inevitably, but if a particular regulation gets challenged, one of the first things that the court does, and I know you know this from your own practice, is to look at the record that was before the rulemaking body to figure out why and if the rule has some rational basis to it.
Right.
And the best way to get the reasoning for a proposed piece of regulation out there is by holding a hearing. And it also takes away the opportunity for those who claim as a defense that they didn't know about it or had no input into it. It takes that defense away because there was a public hearing. And once that happens, that defense is gone.
Fair enough. We can certainly conduct such a public hearing within the confines of one of our regular meetings. We would want to notice that, publish it, as we would with any other hearing. So what we'll do is I'll coordinate with the office staff. I'll coordinate with you to find out when you're available. I don't think that we own you for every single Tuesday night for the rest of your life, so
No,
I'd
but
like to...
Can I make a, Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion? One of the things that we're going to do is an educational forum and have it at different restaurants. So I would suggest that we could probably do this public hearing at a restaurant. We'll call on the restaurants to have it there, so the educational tool will be in their restaurant, and maybe do a few restaurants, because they're the ones that are being targeted. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to do a series of educational and explain to them what we're doing, why we're doing it, so they would, when the regulation was passed or when it came down, that they'd have a full understanding, because I do want to educate them, because they need to know why we're doing this. A lot of people that are in the business of restaurants don't really understand. So that's what I was going to do. So I'm going to throw that out there, and I'll find a way to educate.
Well, that's interesting. I can see a couple of selectmen at least are starting to salivate, so you may have gotten somewhere with them. The only issue with that is if we do it in a restaurant, we have to coordinate the broadcast of it so people can see it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
So we'll think about it.
No, I
But
understand.
it's an interesting
that.
suggestion, to say the least.
It has to just be open to the public. Not everything has to be on TV. It's not that important that everybody see us on TV.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. I don't care if I'm on TV or not. I just think that maybe people might be interested, if they can't attend, to at least be able to watch a tape of it or something. But
I think it's
Selectman
important
Whiteside?
to actually have it, a published hearing here. I think the educational visits are a great idea, and I'm not going. But I think that it is more formal if you have it in a specific place, as opposed to hosting it in 3 different restaurants. Why didn't you come to mine, or something like that?
I have no problem with that. And at that meeting, the public will definitely put on a display. We have FOG coordinators throughout the state that do this, and we'll bring one of them in to give a good educational presentation of the reasons why. I may even get the DEP to be here, because this is something that everybody's pushing. So we could have an educational thing to the public
okay,
in
we'll
general.
we'll discuss it further and figure out
That'd be good.
how to get it done. Does anybody have anything else for Mr. Campina while he's here?
Actually, one question, Guy. As soon as he's done. Mr. Campina,
Yes, I'm sorry.
tie and bond, how are we doing with them?
Ty and Bond, they're actually telling me 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been quite a bit going on. They really digested some numbers, and they're pretty excited about what they're doing. They think they could have, and I think to be fair, once they're completed, I want to meet with them to go over it. Then it's going to get to each one of the members of the board, so you can digest it, and then we can decide what to do with it from there.
Did you get that intern back from UMass?
Yes, I have the intern. He's doing a good job already.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just one.
Thank you.
One follow-up on the tie and bond thing. Are they going to come before the board and do their presentation, or are they
Yes,
just...
I think that's up to you. I was thinking that, and this is my thought process, is after they get it completed, we'd sit down with them, then each of you folks could get it and digest it. And so
And
when you
then-
sat with them, you'd have questions that may be more proper.
Right,
So
that all makes sense, because I'm trying to, I'm looking at the calendar here, 2 weeks to get the thing completed, gets it in our hands on the 22nd, but then, of course, we're confronted by town meeting,
Absolutely.
which very compressed time frame for us to meet, an hour before each session of town meeting. So presumably, we would want to meet with them after town meeting, which would give us time to read the contents, digest, and think about
Absolutely.
things.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
So-
I think that was the goal.
So I guess that's how we'll do it going
Chance.
forward. Anything else for Mr. Campina? Thank you very much for your time tonight and your patience while we slogged through the other hearing.
I do
My
have
pleasure,
one
thank you.
question of you.
Yeah,
Just because of where we were Friday. How many sewer pumping stations are there in Wareham?
45 stations in Wareham. I could break down. We have the large pump stations like Narrows, Depot Street, and Heinz Field or Lopes Field. There are larger. They come directly to the treatment plant. They do approximately 300,000 gallons a day. So there are larger ones. Then we break out the smaller ones, and right down to the little small one that's in the Rose Point, the small neighborhoods. We have 45 of them, and what you saw Friday, there are others like that. So, and we've been trying to get to them. We've been doing the inside, so I was pretty excited about them doing the outside.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All set.
Okay, next item on the agenda, please.
If the board will put up with me, We have two women that have been sitting here for a while. Could you tell us what you're waiting for? If the board will allow, can we bring them up? They've been here a long time. That's kind of,
Yes. Let's see, Attorney Bowen. I think we have some correspondence relating to that. Does everybody have a copy of correspondence from Huggins and Witten LLC? This is from Attorney John Witten.
Yes.
In relation to this, that was sent to the program manager for CHAPA regarding their responsibilities to market the property at the price required by the affordable restriction here. People need a minute to read this thing. Yeah, why don't you come on up? Yes, this is dated today, no less. Hi, good evening.
Hello.
And do we have a copy for Ms. Aruda? You know, I'm wondering if I have another copy here kicking around. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and take this one and make a copy. There's an issue. Waiting for Attorney Bowen to finish reading it.
Oh, I'm all set.
Yep, he's a pretty quick reader. Does the rest of the board have an opportunity to go through this?
can I have one question quickly? I'm a little confused on the CHAPA letter dated September 11th, 2013. It says the fair market value of the home is $175. Per deed writer, you may sell a unit for at least 95% of this price. No funds are due to Wareham if you sell within this price. So this will be sold.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Second paragraph on the letter from CHAPA.
Yes.
It basically says that fair market value of the home is $175 per deed writer. You may sell a unit for at least 95% of this price. That would probably be 160 something.
Mm-hmm.
Price is listed at 172. Does that fall within CHAPA's rules? The only reason why I ask is because if it doesn't, isn't there something with the Affordable Housing Trust of the town of Wareham?
With your permission,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Selectman Slavin, yes, that's correct. Just by way of background, the parties obviously haven't had an opportunity to take a look at this. My colleague, Attorney Witten, was asked to review this matter, and upon his review, he has discovered that CHAPA has not followed the rules in acting as our monitoring agent. The basic summary of the facts is this. this particular development, 10 of the 40 units were supposed to be affordable in perpetuity. CHAPA was set up as our monitoring and compliance agent for purposes of making sure that these units remain affordable. Under the terms of the deed rider, CHAPA undertook certain obligations to act as enforcing agent, a monitoring agent, specifically upon receipt of the conveyancing notice. And I'm reading from the deed rider, upon receipt of the conveyance notice, the monitoring agent, that's CHAPA, shall promptly begin to locate an eligible purchaser. Rather than do that upon receipt of the notice, CHAPA instead delegated improperly delegated the responsibility for finding a responsible buyer to these folks rather than undertake it themselves.
It was just to myself. The home was
Could you use the microphone?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The home was listed on the Mass Access website, which is how I guess CHAPA advertises their homes. And they would contact me if they had an appropriate buyer, and then I would go and open the house and show them.
There was a letter from CHAPA.
Yeah, you've got to use the mic too.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There was
Sorry.
I stepped in late in this, but there was a letter from CHAPA that wasn't, I'm not sure that the town received, but last October, basically telling Courtney that she had met all of their restrictions as far as attempting to find a new affordable purchaser, and she was free to sell it at market rate at that time. Whether or not the town knew that or not, I'm not sure. Courtney contacted me. We advertised it and did not discourage any affordable buyers. When we finally did get an offer, we sent all the documentation into CHAPA, at which point they reiterated that she had already fulfilled her obligation for the affordable. And I have the prior correspondence in here if you'd like me to dig it out.
Oh, that'd be great, thanks.
Yes, if you would, please.
Told you.
Again, we don't want to hold anything up here
No, we
unnecessarily,
don't.
but
No,
what
and
this
this-
letter from Attorney Witten says,
No,
he's
I-
basically
I-
saying, show me, and if
got
you
it.
can show us, then
This is, well, it's in pieces because I dropped it when I came in. In July, excuse me, do you have the original July correspondence?
Not in front of me, no. Thank you.
That might not be an extra one, but in
Okay.
July, it looks like they sent something to the town indicating that she wanted to sell the unit, and she had to go through a process. And unfortunately, this in bits and pieces is what they sent her to use. I cleaned out my file today, so not everything's where it was. I apologize.
take your time.
In October, there's another letter from the state indicating that she had complied and was able to go forward and attempt to sell the property, here it is, to a non-affordable person at that time. Do you have that one? Okay. And subsequent to that, this spring, when the market started turning into spring market, Courtney contacted me to try to attempt to sell the property. We did not discourage affordable buyers, but none came forward in my 90 to 120 days of marketing the property.
Well, I'll let Attorney Bowen speak, and then we'll ask some questions.
Selectman Tropiano's been waiting as well.
Well, let's let Attorney Bowen respond to what he just read.
The issue here, as it has been framed by Attorney Witten to our monitoring agent, CHAPA, is not about the good faith of these folks or doesn't question the propriety of their actions. But what it does is it questions the propriety of the procedures that CHAPA has followed in terms of marketing this property. The town pays CHAPA to monitor these properties, to help market them when they come available, and what we are challenging, Attorney Witten and myself, is that CHAPA has done its job for the money that you have paid it. This is not a reflection on these individuals
Can I
at all.
interject something? Because, again, I'm not privy to the original approval. I've done affordable in other towns. CHAPA charges her a monitoring agent fee when she sells the unit of 2.5%. I don't know.
CHAPA charges everybody.
Well, I
So-
don't know what they charge you, but they've charged her, she has a fee due to them for going through the process that they outlined to them. And my understanding from the original deed writer was if she went through this process and was not able to locate an eligible purchaser, then the deed restriction could be released by her demonstrating she was not able to do so and sell it at market rate with the windfall if there was one going to the town. In this case, the market is sunk. There is no windfall. But if it had been the other way around and the property was worth more, you would be getting money at this transaction. In this case, because of where the market is, there isn't any.
Selectman Topiano?
All right.
Sorry to make you wait, but...
Okay, I need to just kind of clarify some things for myself. All right, so you're trying to sell this house for how much money?
It is under contract to close. This letter has been here, by the way, for 3 or 4 weeks.
Just how much?
Anyway, $172,000.
Okay, $172,000. And its affordable price is?
The maximum resale price that CHAPA established was $176,000.
176,
which
right.
was what it was put on the market for.
Okay, so when you bought it, you paid $176,000 for it?
No, she paid $160,000.
168. Okay, so now, as we all know, the market has been going along, and everybody who owns a house tries to sell it right now couldn't get what they paid for their house. No how, no way. Most of them.
At this
right?
era.
At this particular era in time. I mean, there were houses that were worth $300,000 or $400,000. You're lucky to get $250,000 or $300,000 for right now, and that's just the way it is. So what you're saying is you couldn't locate somebody who wanted to buy this at $176,000 because they would be restricted by the affordable and they could buy something else in the market for that kind of money. Correct?
We did not.
It's just a question.
We couldn't find anybody that wanted to buy it for $176 because there were other options in the market.
But you found somebody who wants to pay $172 for it.
Correct.
But they don't want the restriction on it.
Correct.
Right? And that's why they're paying that kind of money, $172.
Another affordable unit recently sold in there for $174.
Okay.
It remained affordable, but I don't know how, but they had a buyer that.
Well, see, this is my problem. You see, when we created these affordable houses, it goes towards our number for being affordable. And our number is we're not at 100% right now, even though we have a lot of other types of affordable they don't allow us to count. We're not at our number. So what I'm saying is, okay, you couldn't sell it for $172, but maybe you could have sold it to somebody affordable at $160. Yes, you could have.
That I was not involved in the marketing to the affordable person, but CHAPA actually was the one that advertised it as an affordable.
Okay.
I can't speak to what.
But if it's an affordable, the person that bought the affordable, okay, you can't be guaranteed because you bought an affordable house that you're going to get all your money back if the market fails, just like anybody else.
That was never.
You get what I'm saying here?
I know what you're saying.
You get where I'm coming from? What I'm trying to say here is that we're going to lose an affordable unit, okay, in our stock, which is going to reduce our number. And if everybody did this, which they could because the market has sunk so, that means the affordable people have to take the hit just like everybody else if they want to sell their units. You see what I'm saying? Like if I'm taking the hit, if I'm selling my house and I'm going to take a hit of, 30% or 50% or whatever it happens to be when I sell my house, then the affordable people have to say the same. See, the system was designed so that the house remained affordable and that they got a graduated increase as well, but on the affordable scale, so that they got an increase as well. Well, they should accept a decrease as well, is what I'm trying to say to you. Otherwise, we lose the stock. Now, if she takes hers off the rolls of the affordable, right, although it looks like somebody sold one for $174 in the same place, which means there is people out there that are willing to buy it.
I don't know that's the exact number, but it was in
Whatever. But there is people out there willing to buy it, apparently. But they just didn't find it right away. This can happen. You see, the thing is, if CHAPA says, okay, 90 days, you tried to market it, and therefore you can sell it as an affordable. That's a non-affordable unit. That's a big deal. That's a huge difference. between handing somebody an affordable certificate and not handing them a affordable certificate. It would be like me going to sell my house. I think it's worth $350. I can only get $250, but somebody comes in and says, well, I'll give you the difference if you sell the house for this amount of money, which is really what they're doing. And yet, I'm penalizing the town as well. You see what I'm saying? It's not a right thing to do. Do you get what I'm saying, counsel?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay. All right, that's what I'm trying to say, is it just is unrealistic that somebody should maintain, just because they bought an affordable unit, maintain market value when nobody else is guaranteed a market value, which is what we're doing here. And not only that, but what we're saying is, well, we'll give you a bonus and we'll take it off the affordable rolls. And that it hurts the town.
Can I interject something?
Yes.
And again, I think your argument is with CHAPA, unfortunately.
No, it's not, really.
Well, CHAPA established the maximum resale for her at 176 as an affordable unit per their calculations.
Well, that's her maximum, but that doesn't mean she can't sell it for 160.
No, it doesn't, but she... This is the only offer
Well,
she's
why did
had.
they sell another one in the same place? What's the difference?
I wasn't prepared to defend that.
I
believe
hate
it
to
has
say, maybe you
central
need
air
another
conditioning.
realtor.
Excuse me.
I mean, you know,
Well-
if you can't sell your house with one realtor, you get another one.
Well, I will say as a threshold matter, I think it would be, you know, you've raised this notion that CHAPA was undertaking certain efforts, or that they tried to back delegate those efforts to you. At the very minimum, to even proceed any further with this, and I don't know that the board's gonna. I don't know that you're even with that in mind. I don't know that you're gonna get what you're seeking here. But at the very minimum, I think that file, whatever it is, whatever the communications with CHAPA are, need to be provided to us so we can take a look. Attorney Bowen?
All of the copies of the letters to her were sent to the housing partnership along the way.
You mean to CHAPA?
From CHAPA to, I got in here after CHAPA had already said she'd met her requirements.
Yeah, I get the feeling she might not have been in these straits if you'd been involved from the beginning, but that's...
Well, thank you. But CHAPA, the documents that I have were all forwarded to the town. They were copied to the town previously.
Okay, who's got them? That's the...
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and again, none of what I say is any reflection on you or on your capabilities and competence. I'm of course, very impressed by your presentation. So I have no doubts about the quality of your work on this. That being said, however, to approve this eliminates an affordable unit. And in the deed, it states that the unit is to be affordable in perpetuity. Now, Attorney Whitten, my colleague, has looked at this very closely. He has the file. He's reviewed this correspondence, and it's his conclusion that CHAPA has not done its job. My recommendation to the board, painful as it may be to these folks, but as your attorney, my recommendation is that we await CHAPA's response to Attorney Whitten's letter, which challenges whether they've done what it is that they're supposed to do. It's Attorney Whitten's considered opinion that they improperly, I'm going to say it, dumped off the responsibility for marketing this property onto this young lady.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's not what they're there for. They're there to assist. And it's Attorney Whitten's conclusion, and I support his analysis that CHAPA hasn't done its due diligence here. I'd respectfully suggest that you wait to hear back from CHAPA, get its response, and that could be a week, it could be 2 weeks.
I would suggest, in light of this, that you postpone your closing, and that you certainly would be well motivated to jump high in the air and land on CHAPA with both feet over this. And
I, unfortunately, two things. You're creating a tremendous hardship for Courtney, who's been struggling to pay
Well,
her
I would-
mortgage
I
for
would-
some period of time.
I understand that the result may not be what she's looking for here, but the hardship was created by the very people that she and we paid to not make this happen, not us. We're
But-
just following through on ensuring that the obligations to market this as required in the deed have been met. Our hands are tied here, essentially. Attorney Bowen?
And Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, to Courtney, you know, I'm willing to assume the role of bad guy here in counseling delay. And I'm not unsympathetic to your situation. I see your tears, and I regret them. But as your counsel, it's my obligation to make sure that the contracts that we've entered into are followed. One of the obligations in the contracts that we've entered into is that this unit be maintained in perpetuity, and that if the board is going to release it, that our monitoring agent has taken every step, has done all its diligence to make sure that there was no other alternative to the loss of that unit. So I'm the bad guy here. Understand it, not these folks. I'm telling them that they need to wait to hear back from CHAPA.
I don't understand.
She last October, they were given a right of first refusal to purchase the unit.
Kept the unit affordable. I was willing to walk away with nothing. I don't care about getting anything. I just
She would have signed it over. You were notified was it October? Yes. That she had gone through all of this, and in July, we're given the right of first refusal to purchase it. This went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which actually is where the other letter went that I have been trying to get heard by somebody since September 18th about this subject for her closing that's supposed to occur on Thursday. The buyer will lose their rate lock, and I'm not sure if they'll wait 3 or 4 weeks for this situation. I understand you're in a difficult position here,
Yeah, we're stuck.
but a call today would have been nice, because I got told last week we'd be put on the agenda for tonight and was not aware of any of the rest of this after waiting 2 hours.
Well, you can see the date of the correspondence from Attorney Whitten is the same as this meeting. So, you know, it's not like I had this on Friday and could have had the office give you a call. So.
I'm not faulting you
No,
here.
well-
I'm just saying that what CHAPA and the town has an agreement is that agreement. She's followed what she was instructed to do, and the deed writer, as she signed. She did what she was supposed to do. She contacted the monitoring agent. She notified them. They notified you. She notified them when she found a purchaser with all the documentation to be approved for her to be able to sell the unit and move on with her life. And it's been a year. The first correspondence was last July 2012, to the town. So I don't know about your Affordable Housing Board. No one ever responded to my multiple calls or hers to the planning board, because that's who we got sent to.
The Zoning Board of Appeals would have been the authority for this.
I understood it was on their agenda on September 25th and never discussed by the young lady in the planning board. I can come up with her name.
Planning board.
Hey, Pam. I'm struggling. Who? Brenda
Sampson.
Thank you. Sorry. When the letter came through from CHAPA, it went to the Board of Appeals. I followed up 2 or 3 days later to make sure that they've gotten it. And I've talked to Brenda 2 or 3 times, never got a return phone call. I was told it was put on the agenda when I went in there a week ago Monday, because we've gotten no response. And she went through her notes and said it was on the agenda on September 25th and never discussed, after going through everything, and suggested I go to the Selectmen's office, which is when I went down and talked to Jan, I think, in your
Janet,
office,
yes.
who was very, very helpful.
Yeah, and she is.
So we've been singing this dance for over 30 days now. We're close to 30 days. We notified CHAPA September 4th.
Well, this is,
And if you'd like to buy her unit for what did your mortgage pay off? $150,000? I'm sure she'd sign you the deed. Seriously.
well, we're certainly not in a position to make that determination tonight, unfortunately. Only town meeting can buy property, not us. Yeah. This is not pleasant. It's unfortunate that,
It's sad that people
Well,
get caught up in
I think it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry for the position you're in, but if I'd gotten this audience 30 days ago, we certainly would have had the conversation. But her monitoring agent and her deed, she followed what she was supposed to do to be able to sell this unit and get out from under it.
well, again, all I can, well, Attorney Bowen.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say this because I know you won't say it, but I know as soon as this matter came to your attention and the board's attention, it got on your agenda.
Oh, it did. I agree.
Again, I would suggest not necessarily giving up hope. I cannot guarantee that, regardless of what CHAPA comes up with, that you would receive a favorable vote from this board to authorize me to execute what you're looking for here. However, I think, given the findings, if you will, from Attorney Whitten, you need to go back to CHAPA, and you need to go back fairly aggressively to get them to produce the paper trail that shows that they did, in fact, meet some sort of standard for the obligation they had in the deed. That's the issue here. And again, I can say that I'm not necessarily happy
I don't
that
think
they got
that
paid.
should be her job. Yeah, that's really your position with CHAPA, is it not? I mean, I don't mean to be argumentative, but
Mr. Chairman, I'll be the bad guy again. You've created an affordable unit. Please let me finish. This is a public benefit. It's not a benefit to be set aside lightly. When you purchased the property, you purchased it subject to that restriction and the regulations that came with it. It's the Board of Selectmen's responsibility, it's the town's responsibility to protect the affordability of that unit. It could protect the affordability of that unit by simply saying no to your request. I haven't heard the board say that. What I am hearing the board say is that there has been considerable doubt expressed about the way that this property was marketed, not by you, but by the monitoring agent who was paid to assist you in marketing the property. And if you would let me finish.
I'm sorry.
It is the board's responsibility to the public to make sure that if this unit should be preserved because the process wasn't followed, that it is preserved. It's a hard duty. It's hard for me to say this, but the law is sometimes hard. This is the law. When you bought an affordable unit, you bought it subject to these hard circumstances.
And unfortunately, I think that's where we have to conclude. We're not going to take a position on this tonight. You know, we're certainly willing to afford you the opportunity to do the best job you can to go back to CHAPA. And I would suggest, frankly, that you get Attorney Bowen's contact information.
Absolutely.
And to provide whatever you have, whatever you can, to substantiate that this property was, in fact, appropriately marketed. That's where I have to leave it at this point. My hands are absolutely tied. I know right now that even if I were in favor of doing this, I would not receive the vote of my colleagues to do so. And so I'm not going to put it to a vote because I don't want this to be the final chapter here. I want to know what the hell CHAPA did. And
Fair.
That's where I will leave that. I understand that this, means a delay. I am fully cognizant that the delay means the sale might be lost. But unfortunately, I'm stuck. Selectman Slavin?
This would be more to Attorney Bowen. Maybe I'm thinking in the wrong direction, but doesn't ZBA usually do a ruling on this? I believe they handle these to start with, so we don't have anything from them at all.
I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, through you to Selectman Slavin, the ZBA does handle them because they initially set the conditions.
Right.
But ultimately, the decision, that the actual document that has to be executed is executed by the head of the executive branch, which is you, and I believe ultimately, I think I saw a document that was being set up for the chairman's signature. This came on the agenda because of your visit last week
Because I was getting no response from the CBA.
and the need to bring it to a head and find out what was going on.
Yes. Again, Ms. Ruda, I'm sorry that we can't grant you what you're looking for here tonight, but we will leave the matter open and see where it does finally land. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience sitting through all of this.
I'd like
And-
one question, if I might. If Mr. Attorney Bowen and I can have conversations with CHAPA that prove they made some effort, however we want to call it.
I don't think you want to characterize anything as some effort.
I understand that, but
Just-
I have some people to tell tomorrow this is not happening. Courtney's vacated her unit. We have to give the buyer some reasonable idea of extension time period. So, should we find something as far as
So you're looking for
approval
time when to come back?
to come back to you? I just heard about town meeting and yada yada.
Well, no, town meeting's not till the end of the month. If you want, I can tentatively put this down. I mean, I don't think we have a heavy schedule next week. I don't know that you're going to be able to make next week. I can put it on for next week. You can advise Attorney Bowen by no later than Thursday of whether you've been able to come up with anything. I can speak with Attorney Bowen and see if that's enough to sort of satisfy him in terms of changing the advice he might give. If not, and there's more information out there to be gathered, I can put it off till the following week. The only dates that we're tied up, and date, in fact, is specifically is the 29th.
Okay.
So, I'm more than willing to leave agenda space open in the hopes for your client that you can bring something forward that will alter the outcome here.
Okay.
What specifically are you looking for, so I know what to ask for?
They're looking for evidence that they tried to market it, I believe.
I'll let Attorney Bowen answer that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think that the letter that Attorney Whitten sent off to CHAPA today will probably elicit the sort of information that you're going to want to see. So it's pretty well set out in there. If you're going to be speaking with Ms. Palma Diaz or anyone up at CHAPA, you can ask them to address the questions that Attorney Whitten has raised. I will be speaking to Attorney Whitten about this tomorrow. He and I will work together on this. And you have my contact information, and I'm very happy to work with you on this to
Absolutely.
move it as quickly as we can.
Again, I'm sorry, but that's the best we can do tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'd like to do my business.
Okay, next item on the agenda, please.
Review and discussion of the revenue and expenditure reports.
We don't have Selectman Holmes here tonight. With that in mind, I'd kind of like to put that one off. I know he takes a great interest in these, and I think it would behoove us to wait until we have his wisdom and guidance on these questions. Next item, please.
You'll reschedule that for next week?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Continued discussion and vote on the social media policy.
Yeah, we'll wait till Attorney Bowen is finished up. If you want to move on to something else that doesn't require him while he's talking.
Vote to accept amended audit committee guidelines.
Yeah, this is a pretty simple one. Last week we had the pleasure of Mr. Heaney's company, and we're presented with a series of recommendations because we hadn't noticed his appearance in context with a vote. We had to come back to it this week. I think we were all pretty pleased with what we heard, that Mr. Haney was up to, what he was looking for, how he was looking to expand the audit committee. And so, without much further ado, I would ask that we simply go ahead and vote to adopt those recommendations to change the guidelines.
I have the decision right here.
I will move that we accept the amended audit committee guidelines.
Motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? That carries 4-0-0. Okay, we still have
Warrant articles?
warrant articles. Let me get my sheet out here.
We have to finish. We have to finish this tonight.
Yeah, in order to get things published, well, again, we've decided that we're not going to... Everybody else set? We've decided that, I thought we decided last week that there wasn't really anything to vote on in terms of finals from the planning articles, and that we would have to hold off and do those on the 22nd following their public hearings on the 21st, and any sense as to whether there was going to be some amendment resulting from those public hearings. So going down the list here,
Article 13.
we're good right for 13. I'm not going to get into this too much because it's still being worked on. What I would ask for on number 13, which is the Wareham High School roof replacement project feasibility study, there are currently some back and forth with the school department, the school committee, on whether this article is even necessary. What I would ask is that tonight the board vote no action, and see if the article becomes, if the article, does stay and becomes necessary. We can also always change that vote. It just won't be in the published information. So could we have a motion?
I will make a motion for no action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. 4-0-0 for no action. Now, let's see. Next up on the list is number 14, appropriations transfers. We held this one. Do you have anything more you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, we'll be seeking to transfer $20,000 into the planning department for the purpose of hiring a full-time planner. Given what we budgeted in the part-time planner plus the extra few months gap, we don't need to transfer as much as we would need if we were funding for the full year. So it'd be $20,000 from the debt principal line.
Okay. Just for Old Lang Syne's sake here, last week you had told us 32, but you've obviously adjusted that downward to 20,000 based upon the remaining time in the year. So
Yeah, every month that goes by, we don't have to really.
You don't have to pay somebody who
transfer
isn't
as
there.
much.
Got it.
And
Of course, the one thing we need to make clear, though, is that next year you're going to have to fully fund it.
we're gonna have to fully fund it next year.
Okay, as long as you realize that, there's no fountain, there's no place to dip in to grab a pool of money for some of this stuff for next year.
Selectman Slavin?
That's what this gray hair, that gray hair, the ones coming in.
I
tell
noticed you're
me.
getting a couple of grays up there. You ain't been here that long either.
I know. There we go. He's going to be grayer than us. The two of us, we got the gray beards going here. He's at the end of his contract, he's going to be grayer than both of us combined. Selectman Slavin?
Just for the public, Derek, would you explain exactly where the money's coming from so people understand what it is?
Yes, in the budget, we have a debt principal line, and there will be $20,000 extra estimated in that line. The reason for that is we did the ban on one of the notes, which is a bond anticipatory note, which was instead of the borrowing for it, because we didn't have all the items completed. So you can't borrow for the whole project, which is the one that's not completed is the library. I believe it was windows and door, or the exterior repairs. So if you borrowed the full amount when the project hasn't been completed, you basically could suffer, which I believe from arbitrage on it. So that's why we have a little bit of the extra room, and I wish there was more extra room so that we could help more things out. But this is, and having a full-time planner is really one of the goals for this town, as well as I know a few others that we have, including an HR director, so.
Just for clarification also, a band is basically, we're paying interest only, no principal, which makes the difference. So we do have, basically it's a temporary loan out there, which we pay interest only,
Which I
no
believe
principal.
was about $1,000,
Yep.
I believe, so.
Anything else on this?
Move favorable action on Article 14.
Motion made by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Favorable action.
I think that's it, right? The rest of them are all,
Union contracts ratified, fund.
Yeah, you don't have any new contracts you've settled in the past week to give us a dollar amount on here, do you?
No, the only ones we have that would need the funding is the steel workers, upper and lower, that were done in this fiscal year. Again, looking through the numbers, we'd estimated about $16,000. Where this is coming from is in, I believe it was fiscal year 2012, at the backside of the budget, you would see other budget articles, and one was reserved for collective bargaining / judgments. So when you do it as a separate article, its own article, that article and the money's encumbered doesn't go to the general fund at the end. It stays encumbered. But you can only spend or move from that article with an act of the legislative body or town meeting. So we can't, when we do those, we can't just spend. I can't write essentially checks against it. We need to bring it to town meeting, and this is one of the purposes that it could be used for. And again, the steelworkers, it's the contract. This is the first contract that they've had, and the only change to it was they took 2 zeros for cost of living adjustments for FY12 and FY13. However, it added a step 6, which the other unions have. And the step 6, you are eligible for it after 10 years, and it is a 3% step increase.
Okay, again now, I want to keep pointing this out, because I want people at home to realize that we're using one-time money
Correct.
to fund that.
Yes.
Which means that money's not available to fund next year or the next contract, or even the difference between this contract and 2000, what's this go through, 2014?
Yeah, well,
It ends this year, right?
Right.
So in 2004, which will be what, 2015? We're in FY14
We're in
now. So
FY14.
FY15, there won't be any money to fund the difference.
Correct.
Okay, I just want people to understand that that's the case. Okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Favorable action. Okay, next up, we've got the acceptance of Cranberry Lane. I don't believe we received the planning board report on that yet.
No, they've got I believe they've been given a deadline of about the 15th of this month to get it all into us. They're working with the water department, I believe, today, and they still have about 3 or 4 items to go besides the actual layout showing the water line. So this is something where we may end up, if we don't have everything in place, we may have to pull it at town meeting.
Well, okay, we'll just leave it alone and not act on it tonight. It will stay blank in the informational booklet that is providing to the town meeting members when they come in. But we can always make our recommendation afterwards and just read it into the record at town meeting. TDR, again, we're waiting for the public hearing. Medical marijuana treatment centers, the zoning bylaw, waiting for the public hearing. Sign regulations, waiting for the public hearing. Amend zoning bylaw use tables. Is there anything going on with this one?
Still waiting for the planning board to make a decision on it.
Yeah, we'll hold off on that. That won't make it into the printed materials. And then the other two we've already acted on, so that takes care of that. I'm going to leave this on the agenda going forward each week just in case something pops up on the radar.
Okay.
So we can vote
Back to
with
the
notice.
social media.
Mr. Bowen joining us.
Attorney Bowen, come on up and socialize, please. Where are we with this in your mind?
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Selectman Whiteside and I conferred on this matter. After its last vetting by the board, the concern at the time was the breadth of applicability and possible First Amendment issues. What we did was we tweaked it to make it more focused on employee use of town-sponsored social media and really kept it narrowly focused on that so that as we begin to market ourselves through Facebook and some of these other things that honestly I'm not too up on myself, although Selectman Whiteside produced an extensive list, that folks who are purporting to represent the town of Wareham would have to represent it in a way that had prior authorization. So it was a question of going through proper channels to make sure that the use of town media was consistent and appropriate.
And we made the changes that had been recommended.
Yes,
So those
Has your blessing?
it does. Even though I'm not familiar with half of the things on the list.
Neither am I.
MySpace or your space or someone's space, I don't know.
And again, this does have some limited applicability when meshed with employee collective bargaining rights. So,
Yes.
Doodle and Survey Monkey.
Why?
You know what that is?
Uh,
I have no clue.
No, I don't, honestly.
This is funny.
which one are you looking at?
You see the one that says zero line polls and surveys?
It should be online.
Online, okay, but still, Survey Monkey and EG Doodle. I love it. Just sounds
I've actually heard of Survey Monkey, which is kind of scary, but
I gotta go look it up now. We should
Selectmen-
use Survey Monkey for our surveys.
Selectman Slavin?
I've gone through it. I don't really have any problems how it's written. I just have 2 pieces on it. My first question is, are we interfering with people's rights at all on any of these issues? And then, of course, the other piece of that is, obviously, some of this must have a union acceptance. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm just questioning whether or not we're interfering with people's rights and also having union acceptance to this policy.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman. I believe the answer to both of those is no.
Okay.
In terms of individuals' rights, nothing on there pertains to individuals' personal use of their own social media. So if they want to do something on Survey Monkey, was it? You know, whatever they want to do on Survey Monkey that you can do, go do it. In terms of collective bargaining, this, I believe, would fall under the category of management rights to efficiently manage our own resources. So I think that's it.
My last point on this, in the charter and bylaws, we put in back in 2010, and I believe under the town administrator's duties and employees handbook, which this actually could have been in that from day one. I remember I probably asked 3 or 4 times in 2010, 2011 for the town administrator at that time that this is something that should be done, because we've had a lot of issues in that time frame up to now that probably could be settled quite easily with an employee's handbook. It also makes life a lot easier in the human resources end. So I would remind Mr. Sullivan, although he inherited it, it's not his fault, that it is a requirement that the town provide an employee's handbook to every employee.
I did find on the back page under personal use of social media, under item 2, on the second line there, town or its entities, the following disclaimer must appear. I think we want to say appear,
Yes.
and then put some quotation marks immediately after the R that is missing, so that you've got the quote
No,
properly
it's
contained.
not the correct version. Do you have the correct version up?
No, but Mr. Chairman, may I?
I
Yeah.
think you're looking at the one, because we actually took that out. They published,
Yeah, this is.
that's the pre,
Okay, I found that in this week's packet.
I know,
obviously
but
enough.
it's not the correct
It's in
one.
the folder, too.
It was in
All right.
last week's folder.
Well, then let's, I hate to do it to you, Selectman Whiteside, but let's hold off again and get the right darn document in our hands.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to vote on something we didn't read.
Yeah. So,
It was in the packet last week. I want to point out.
Well, I had last week's. This is, actually,
I understand. I'm just pointing out that it is a secretarial error, that it is not the correct version in here tonight.
well, mistakes happen. We live with them. Move on. So, it'll be back on next week, rest assured. Okay, let me make a note to that effect so you don't kill me next week.
this is the one that was in last week's right here.
I know.
Oh, okay, I think we're,
With the blue out. The blue goes out.
we have an update on the volunteer appreciation dinner.
Selectman Whiteside and I worked on it a little bit. I sent out notification and had a senior moment, put down November 6th rather than December 6th.
It was your senior moment, not mine.
That was my senior moment, to make sure everybody understands. So we were looking at possibly doing a turkey dinner because it was going to be before Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, the turkey ran away, and now we're looking at something on the 6th of December. So we have a basic menu set up. We're going to use the multi-service center, the gymnasium down there, which was ideal because there's a kitchen there. There's a whole bunch of nice round tables, and we should be able to seat everybody and take care of it. We started to put together all the different requirements between tables, tablecloths, etc. Our town moderator has very kindly offered to donate a whole bunch of the materials we'll need, such as warming trays, etc. Hopefully, by next week, we'll have a better idea of the final menu of what we're all gonna make.
I got a lot of turkeys down my house.
Mine too.
I
They're
mean,
both
all over the place.
22 at a
It's
time.
amazing how many turkeys.
It's a good year for turkeys.
You know what I want to ask? Oh, well, this is a silly question. You know, have you seen,
That's that.
have you seen the sign that says turkey crossing?
Yes.
How do they know to cross there? That's what I want to know. Can they actually read that sign?
There's food across the road from 'em. So we'll get back to everybody next week. We've also basically contacting all the different volunteers through the office, and we've also included the Wareham Garden Club that do the beautification for the town. And I believe we're going to reach out, I think we said to the school committee, see if they wanted to work with us
That's correct.
and serve. And it should be an interesting night. And again, it's going to be Friday, December 6th. And I believe we're starting, we said 6 o'clock
6 o'clock.
to probably 8:30, somewhere there when we finish.
Depends how fast these turkeys cook.
Turkeys aren't cooking. We're having meat, but it hasn't been determined what kind of meat.
Got to get that in there.
Anyway, I think that, Mr. Clerk, if you would take a look and make sure we've cleared everything under town business. I think we have. We've been hopping around, though. I'd like a second set of eyes on it.
Yeah, because H and I are actually the same thing. There's a misprint there.
Yep.
Next item is anything not anticipated in 48 hours.
Anybody
Mr.
have
Whiteside?
anything?
No, thank you.
Mr.
Jeez,
Tropiano?
what a
No,
grudge.
thank you.
Mr. Slavin says no.
Nope, nothing here. Now we're up to the next item. Your turn.
TA report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The first item I'm bringing forward is we hired a consultant, Mr. Solmonte, to reconcile the health trust. Usually we have not done that. We've actually waited for our auditors to essentially do that. As part of this, we met with the Public Employees Committee yesterday to go over some of the items that we have. So I'm going to go over some numbers. They're not audited, but they're what we look at, the health reconciliation. We know that in the end of FY12, we had a balance in the health trust fund of $654,204. $837,516 belonged to the employees, which meant that the town was in a deficit of $183,312. In the end of fiscal 13, we ended with a total balance of, let me just make sure I have the, $1,678,767, of which $1,024,052 is the employee's portion, $654,715 is the town's portion. So the town's portion increased by $838,000, and the employee's portion increased by $186,536. In meeting with the employees, we're still looking at moving away from self-funding and going into one of the local groups, whether it could be the Mayflower group is used as the example. It's important that we realize when we were looking at the auditor's report, and I believe the statement in there was they understood that FY13 we still were not funding in the full manner. We've resolved that in FY14, and FY14 is also when the split change will happen for 70-30. In meeting with the PEC, we have some decisions to make in the future. How we're going to either choose to rebalance the trust fund, whether we're going to use these funds to buy into another group. If you were to move into another group, you have to sometimes purchase in, whether it's to subsidize some of the rates. You also need to have funds set aside for Blue Cross, essentially an IBNR, incurred but not reported, or a run out. And they'll hold on to those funds for up to 2 years. So you need to have plenty in there. The good news is that the trust fund ended with a healthy balance in it. So if we had not moved the free cash into the trust fund, we would have still had a balance in there. However, the town would have owed exponentially more, close to $1 million. So I appreciate that we work together to move those funds. We know that when the auditors go through it, it will be a finding that we do not have the proper balances, and the end of FY13 was a 75-25 split. However, we've talked about some of the items are a healthcare holiday. I do not recommend those in the future. If we are to rebalance, in other words, you need to somehow change the share that the employees have, I would say you begin at the beginning of the fiscal year and you lower the rates, you subsidize them. Doing a holiday for a period of time is not exact when you have employees on 52-week pay schedules, 26, I believe 40. So trying to rebalance in that manner is ineffective. And you can start it at the beginning of the year, and if your run rates aren't well, you can always readjust them. So that's the update that I have from that. And I don't know if anybody had any questions.
I have a question. Do we know how Obamacare is going to affect us yet?
With GBS, we've been getting some of the notices. I don't know whether we're going to be hit with fees. Our plans are, if they're not there now, we will be the Cadillac plans, which means not just us, but our employees will be hurt by it, and that's a monetary cost. So.
All right, well, try to keep us up to date on that, because I know that this is sort of like a train now running down the tracks, and it appears to me, just in general, that no one, the government or nobody, has any idea what this is really going to be. Yeah, I mean, it's just a wild scene.
Yeah, I cannot tell you exactly what's going to happen. with it
Nobody
right
can.
now, so.
It's not just us, it's everywhere. Nobody has any idea.
If I could, I might be going on the road.
I mean,
And not coming back.
Yeah.
you know, the website got shut down because there was 8 million people who tried to get on the website. Well, there's probably, you know, they probably knew that there's 100 million people that need to get on the website, but they weren't even prepared for that. You know, I mean, they just unprepared. This is just like a craziness, you know?
Any
Not
other?
much we can do about it.
No, obviously we can't from this end, but we're stuck with whatever it is. You know, we talked. Well, okay, go ahead. I can do it under another section.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
Yes, I had a great meeting with Mr. Steve Canessa, the Executive Director of Government Affairs from South Coast Health Systems and Toby Hospital, and he and I are working together to start engaging the town and Toby and South Care Health Systems, having interactions with quarterly meetings as well, and we're currently working on a project that I hope comes to fruition, and that it will help everybody in the town. So once we're ready to speak about that, we'll go forward. But I really appreciate what they're bringing to the table, their willingness to offer and be good members with of the town. So
Well, thank you.
I want to thank the department heads. I've received the budgets that we've requested from them. This year we have started off with an actual needs-based budget stating what it takes to properly run their departments, how many people, what the costs would be, et cetera. I want everybody to know this is over 6 weeks ahead of time than when they're usually done. So I appreciate all their efforts, and this month we'll be having individual meetings as well as all the fun stuff that goes on. So I appreciate all their help. The next item was Friday, October 1st. Myself, the Director of Assessing, Elsa Miller, and Selectman Slavin attended the Department of Revenue seminar in Randolph, and the first thing I learned from it with the seminar topics is we're not alone in the questions we have. It's not just us. So that was, every now and then you get a little reliever about that. But we brought back some of the books for the finance department and the accounting, and the topics were really, it's what's of interest and what's important. It was betterments, it was some of the employment issues, and I appreciate that they're able to put these forward. And I got to meet the deputy director, Mr. Nunes, there, which was very interesting. So, and that's my my report.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. Liaison reports.
Liaison reports. Mrs. Whiteside? Mr. Tropiano?
Also,
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. It's a busy week last week. First, did we get the new intern graduate student from University of Mass, Dartmouth, come in the China?
Yes.
We have a student that applied. That's actually a exchange student from China. It's a graduate student.
Yes, he's working with Mr. Campina in the water pollution control, and there's an EDU rate audit. Not rate, but an EDU audit that's going to be. It's actually going to be very interesting. Probably something he can really hang his hat on. So,
Okay. On Thursday, we were invited to participate in the Bridgewater State University Jobs Fair for interns. I basically was there for, wasn't bad, it was only 2 hours from 1 to 3, and I brought back 10 potential intern students for the town who came into the booth, left their resume, and showed interest there, so we'll see what happens there. The program is done through Bridgewater State. It's a new program which isn't really out to the public as well, where they pay for the intern itself. So this would be a no cost to the town. I don't know what we're going to receive out of this, but at least the process has started.
we have received one person with interest in the GIS, which
Yes.
is very important to the town, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I already forwarded that over to them to see what they'll do with that.
Yep.
We have people actually looking at the accounting department, town administration. Bridgewater State University has extremely strong MPA program, which is where a lot of town administrators, town finance directors, town planners all come out of that particular school. As Derek mentioned, on Friday, we were off to Randolph, and we did seminars. The Department of Revenue did a presentation. I'll be making copies of these books here. It was extremely good because in the special funds section, the issues that we have been banging around was enterprise funds, which has to do, of course, with water pollution control facility, what we can do and can't do with retained earnings, community preservation. They've given us charts and explained a lot of detail, a lot of things that we thought there were questions on, they answered. They actually have examples in the book that fit exactly what we're asking about, and models are basically right in line what we have. So this was a great help. They gave us examples, made it very simple. I think anybody can read it and understand it. On Saturday, Mass Municipal Association did a presentation. So I was out in Franklin, never been there before actually. And one of the main topics, which everybody can see, is called capital planning, which is quite an interesting thing because we've actually 3 years ago I did one with Arlington, and the fellow from Arlington was the presenter again. And it was the same basic information we had, but just shows that it took them probably 20 plus years to get to the point they're at, and that I'll read one thing, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. Arlington's cultural legacy. I think this really sets a stage for why they work so well. Our community life has long benefited from political traditions, institutions, and infrastructure passed to us by our predecessors. As transient custodians of our culture and environment, we share in our ancestors' obligations to transfer equitably to the generations following the same or greater value that we ourselves have received. From an infrastructure viewpoint, in the latter part of the 20th century, we enjoyed the schools, town hall, public buildings, library, roads, highways developed by the greatest generation of their forebears. In the last several decades, town meeting and the voters have faithfully continued the town's practice to pass on to our children and grandchildren an intact municipal fabric and preserved community wealth. Under town meeting government, our town operates with prudence, probity. Our bond rating is AAA. Our debt less than 1/6 of the state legislative limit. In 2011, favorable override vote and adoption by town management and labor of the GIC health insurance are two fiscal building blocks to continue Arlington's strong legacy. This is a town that basically has had a history this way here, and it's one of the reasons they've been successful. I'm hoping Wareham can follow the same direction.
Is this yours?
And the last piece that was done also was successful town manager, town administrator performance evaluation. That should help us down the line as well. And that was my quiet week last week.
I wouldn't even if I had something, I wouldn't be able to follow that up. I guess we're all set here. Motion to adjourn.
Motion so made.
Motion made by Selectman Slavin, seconded by everybody else. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
Good night.
Have a good
Wareham.
night.